Chapter 927. Right now, he could not even sleep well. His mind was filled with Mu Yaja's cold voice. Thinking of that hair-raising warning, he felt even more uneasy. He hurriedly picked up the phone and called his son, who had caused so much trouble for him. As soon as the call was connected, he vented all his anger on him. "Where are you now? Come over here." On the other end, Du Jian was at an entertainment clubhouse. The environment was noisy. Tonight's class banquet had embarrassed him, so under Huang Lily's suggestion, he invited a group of classmates to the clubhouse to have fun. Du Jian, who was having a good time at the clubhouse, picked up the call a little late. The moment he picked up, he heard his father's anxious roar. Confused, he asked blankly, "Dad, what's wrong with you?" Since young, Du Boxiong had doted on him, relying on his mother's doting. Never once did he yell at him or even lay a finger on him. Now that he heard this sudden outburst of anger, he was instantly dumbfounded. Du Boxiong heard the noisy environment on the other end. This lad still had the mood to fool around outside at such a critical time? He said unhappily, "What kind of good thing did you get into for me? Get back home now. I have something to ask you." Good thing? What good thing? He hadn't done anything good recently. He had only done some harmless bad things. However, he was still in the middle of singing and had not enjoyed himself to the fullest. He was a little indignant that he had to go back now. Du Jian thought about it and decided to use his old trick to coax his father. "Dad, can't we go later? I'm still having fun with my friends, we're only in the middle of it." Bang! He seemed to hear the sound of something heavily hitting the table. It was ear-piercing and exuded a strong murderous aura. Du Jian was so shocked that his breathing stopped. He did not dare to continue speaking. He knew that Du Boxiong was angry. Very angry, too. "I don't care what happened. Anyway, I'm only giving you 20 minutes. Get back home now. If I don't see you in 20 minutes, I won't be polite to you." With that, he hung up the phone. Du Jian was dumbfounded as he held the phone. He blinked his eyes in bewilderment and hung up gloomily. Seeing this, Huang Lily asked carefully. Du Jian snapped, "How would I know what happened? My dad told me to rush back." "Ah, this was only the beginning. I'm not high yet." Huang Lily was reluctant to part with him. "What's there to play? You know my dad's temper. Once he loses his temper, it's out of control. Hurry up and go back." Thus, the two of them didn't even have time to say goodbye to their friends. They rushed out of the house, hailed a taxi, and sped all the way home. Even though he did not know what was going on, he was still on tenterhooks. He had seen how Du Boxiong looked when he was angry. It was terrifying. Now that he had to face it, he really couldn't take it. He practically sprinted all the way home. Leaving Huang Lily in the living room, he walked into the study room and opened the door. He saw Du Boxiong pacing back and forth in front of the window with his hands behind his back, looking furious. Hearing the sound of the door opening, he turned around abruptly and swept a pair of sharp eyes at him. Chapter 928. Now that he had to face it, he really could not take it. He practically sprinted all the way into the house, leaving Huang Lily in the living room. Walking into the study, he pushed open the door and saw Du Boxiong pacing back and forth in front of the window with his hands behind his back, looking furious. Hearing the sound of the door opening, he abruptly turned his head and swept a pair of sharp eyes at him. Du Jian was instantly shocked by this gaze and took a few steps back as a layer of cold sweat broke out on his forehead. He shrunk his shoulders in trepidation and stammered, "Dad, what's wrong with you? Why are you looking for me?" Du Boxiong glanced at him again before walking to the table and sitting down. Seeing that his son seemed to be frightened out of his wits, he seemed to realize that he had lost control of his emotions. Looking at his precious son, he could not help but suppress his anger and temper. He knocked on the table and said in a low voice, "Sit down." Du Jian furrowed his brows and slowly sat down at the table. He sighed helplessly and asked coldly, "Jian, what have you done to offend someone these few days?" "Offend? Who did I offend?" Du Jian cocked a brow. He did not think too much of it and shook his head with certainty. "Nothing. Tell me the truth." Du Boxiong frowned, his tone hardening. Du Jian felt aggrieved. Dad. I really didn't. Do I look like the kind of person to stir up trouble? What's wrong with you? It's as if you've eaten explosives. You're denouncing me the moment I come back. Seeing his father's increasingly ashen face, Du Jian's voice became softer and softer. Heh. Eaten explosives? You're pushing your dad to his death. He shouted. What did I do? I didn't do anything. You didn't do anything? You didn't do anything, yet that person called me. How did you offend that person? Du Jian was getting more and more confused. What do you mean by that person? Who is that person? Dad, even if you want to blame me, you have to let me know clearly. Okay. Then, I'll let you know clearly. Du Boishiong picked up his teacup and gulped down a few mouthfuls. He then sighed and asked with a frown, Jian, how did you anger Master Mu? Master Mu? Du Jian raised his brow strangely. His heart. However, he didn't dare to admit it. And which Master Mu? Du Boishiong lowered his voice. Disheng Financial Group's CEO, Mu Yaja. Yes, you didn't offend him, but you bullied his people. Aren't you embarrassing him? His people. Du Jian had a bad feeling about this. Could it be that his father knew everything? Who is it? He asked knowingly but did not dare to say it out loud. Chapter 929. Du Jian was a little frightened, but facing his father's frightening gaze, he subconsciously wanted to cover up the good deed he had done out of guilt. Thus, he softly and perfunctorily said, Dad, I really don't know any young Master Mu. I don't care what grudges you have with young Master Mu, nor what you've done to him or what is done to you. In any case, you'd better settle this matter properly. Hurry up and apologize to him properly. Just as he finished speaking, Du Jian raised his voice in disbelief. Dad, what did that young Master Mu do to you? You seem to have eaten explosives. Du Boishiong was already in a fit of anger. Seeing that his son was not giving him a way out, his anger flared up again. He was so angry that he wished he could give him a tight slap. Alas, this was his son whom he had doted on since young. His hand was raised high, and if he really wanted to slap him, he really did not know how to do it. Clenching his hand into a fist, he slammed it on the table. The table groaned in pain as if it were about to crack. Du Jian jumped in fright and was tongue-tied as he stood rooted to the spot. He had never seen his father treat him so fiercely. He guessed that something must have happened, so he told him everything in detail. After saying that, he observed his father's expression and carefully asked, Dad, I really don't know his identity. If I did, would I have offended him like this? Also, what happened? Because you offended young Master Mu, the Mu Group's real estate company cancelled my case. Recalling Mu Yaja's cold and heartless voice, he gritted his teeth in hatred and said angrily, Aren't you digging a grave for our whole family? Is young Master Mu someone you can afford to offend? Are you really tired of living? It's fine if you're tired of living, but are you planning to drag the whole family into the fire pit? Du Jian was a little disapproving. Isn't it just the Mu family? No matter how big the world is, can it be bigger than the emperor? Heh. I've really never seen the emperor before, but in the capital, the Mu family is really a well-known figure. Du Jian was stunned. Du Boishiong coldly glanced at her and said in a deep voice, The Mu family's business is huge, and they have businesses all over the world. No one knew how vast the Mu Group's empire was. They only knew that the Mu family's assets were the driving force of the entire financial world and the core of the entire Asia's economy. What's even more frightening is that the Mu family's connections are very extensive. From the government to the government, there are people from the Mu family everywhere, not to mention the inextricable connections in other fields. Even in Beijing, the mayor had to give young Master Mu some face, let alone your old man. Let me tell you, whether you play in the open or in the dark, you are seeking your own death by going against Mu Yaja. You have picked the wrong opponent. You don't even know how you died. How ugly was his death? Du Jian's lips twitched stiffly as he asked in disbelief, Is it really that exaggerated? Dad. Chapter 930. It doesn't matter who you bully, but you can't bully Master Mu. Do you understand? I still want to live for a few more years. It wasn't easy for me to climb to where I am today. Can't you give me a way out? Du Jian's expression was complicated when he heard this. He opened his mouth in a daze, still somewhat doubtful. Dad, is that Mu Yaja really that scary? He. I don't know how powerful the Muse are. I only know that if he steps on me, my entire foundation will be destroyed. Du Jian fell silent. After taking a shower, Mu Yaja walked to the two little lads' bedroom. When he pushed open the door, the bedroom was warm. The electric fan was blowing, and the air conditioner was not turned on. The two little lads were covered with a blanket each and were already asleep. Yo-Yo's sleeping posture was considered elegant, but Xiaochen's sleeping posture was still as rude as usual. One of his legs was hanging on Yo-Yo's body as he slept soundly. Mu Yaja walked over and saw Yo-Yo frowning slightly. Even though he was asleep, his face seemed to be full of disdain. Xiaochen was probably too restless in his sleep, so the two lads tossed and turned for a while before falling asleep. He reached out and pinched the little lad's brows until the crease between his brows was flattened. Then, he lowered his eyes and planted a kiss on his forehead. This was something he had always wanted to do. In the past, when he was at the Mu residence, he would return home later when Xiaochen was already asleep. He would then go to his room and give him a goodnight kiss. Other than going on business trips, he would do it almost every day. However, Yo-Yo's goodnight kiss seemed to be 7 years late. It was probably not too late, right? Mu Yaja rubbed his hair dotingly and walked to Xiaochen's side to kiss his forehead before leaving. After the door closed, Yo-Yo opened his eyes groggily. He felt as if a tall figure had come to his window, kissed his forehead, and then left. Was it Daddy? When Mu Yaja walked into the bedroom, Yun Shusha was surprisingly awake. She leaned against the headboard with heavy eyelids. When she saw him enter the room, she immediately pulled up the blanket and covered herself tightly. He closed the door. Not asleep yet? Yun Shusha nodded absent-mindedly. I'm waiting for you. Mu Yaja was stunned for a moment before his lips curled into a faint smile as warmth filled his heart. On the other side, he calmly took off his pajamas and said in a deep voice, "If you're tired in the future, you can sleep first. You don't have to wait for me." After taking off his pajamas, his muscular body was exposed to the air. His chiseled chest, well-defined muscles, and the perfect curve of his lower abdomen. It was so firm that there was no excess fat at all. It was comparable to a top model's body. Yun Shusha did not care about what he said. The moment she opened the door, all she could think about was admiring his body. Her gaze was a little dazed. Mu Yaja was a shrewd person. When he saw her gaze, he knew what she was thinking. He smiled and asked, "Have you seen enough?" Yun Shusha finally came back to her senses. She licked her pink lips and nodded. "I've seen enough." Mu Yaja asked again, "Do you want to touch it again?" He was openly behaving like a hooligan. Yun Shusha shook her head decisively and said sourly, "What's so great about having a good body?" Chapter 931. You're not allowed. He sat by the bed and rejected her without thinking. Yun Shusha furrowed her brows. "Why? You're already so skinny. If you lose any more weight, you'll turn into a skeleton spirit." Yun Shusha said pitifully, "I'll look better if I'm skinnier. I'll look more photogenic if I'm skinnier, so what?" Hugging her made him uncomfortable. She still had to have some meat on her body. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to fill his arms. Yun Shusha said, "I feel that I've gained a little weight recently. Tell me, if I get fatter, will I become a pig?" Mu Yaja said calmly, "You don't have to wait until then. You're already as stupid as a pig now." That one sentence was like 1,000 arrows piercing through her heart. Yun Shusha was very hurt. The lights in the bedroom suddenly went out. Mu Yaja covered himself with the blanket. Yun Shusha was stunned. In the darkness, she couldn't see anything clearly. She had been losing a lot of nutrients since she was young. As a result, she had severe night blindness and was very afraid of the dark. It was also from a very young age that she stayed at home alone, facing the darkness alone. She was so afraid that she hid under the blanket. It was also because of this that she developed a bad sleeping habit. Her hands groped in the direction of Mu Yaja. "Hey, Mu Yaja. You." Her hand was suddenly held tightly by a warm palm. With a strong pull, She was embraced by a pair of arms into a broad chest. His faint voice came from above. "I'm here. It's time to sleep. Behave yourself. Am I very restless when I sleep?" Yoon Shusha said angrily. "Your sleeping posture is very indecent. You're just like a koala bear." Yoon Shusha was speechless. Muyaja pulled her into his arms and locked his arms. He smiled and said, "Go to sleep." Yoon Shusha blushed and mumbled awkwardly. She gently closed her eyes and fell asleep after a while. Muyaja gently stroked her hair, pursed his lips, and planted a light kiss on her forehead. The next day, Yoon Shusha woke up early. Muyaja was still sleeping, so she tucked him in. It was rare for him to have a day off, so she wanted him to sleep a little longer. She tiptoed to the bathroom, tidied herself up, and set off for the set. When she was about to leave, she received several missed calls from unknown numbers. She pursed her lips but did not return them. She was in a rush to get to the set, so she ignored them. After the elevator scare that day, Mushi exposed the hotel on the internet, which immediately led to accusations from the netizens. At the same time, it also revealed that the hotel often had people stuffing flirtatious little cards, so privacy was not guaranteed and so on. The hotel was a chain of express hotels. The general manager of the hotel specially opened a Weibo account and stood up to apologize, but it still couldn't calm the anger of the netizens. What a joke! Ji Yuxingze and Yoon Shusha were trapped in the elevator, and the video was exposed on the internet. This caused the fans of Ji Yuxingze and Yoon Shusha to join forces to suppress them. In short, the outcome was tragic enough. The hotel manager wanted to kneel down and beg for mercy. After a while, the commotion died down. Of course, this was all in the future. She went back to filming. After some adjustments, Yoon Shusha recovered to her best state. On this day, she received a mysterious gift. It was a Mercedes-Benz nanny van. When Chin Ju handed her the keys to the nanny van, she was surprised. "What's this?" "Guess." She carefully looked at the Mercedes-Benz logo on the car key and was a little puzzled. "Mercedes-Benz?" Chin Ju said, "a nanny van." Chapter 932. I can't afford to give such a big gift. Then, who gave it to you? Chin Ju looked askance at her, his eyes unreadable. Yoon Shusha probed carefully. Muyaja? Who else could it be? This isn't very appropriate. Yoon Shusha felt a little guilty. In the production team, Youngmi and Ji Yuxingze both had nanny vans. In the industry, a celebrity having a nanny van seemed to be a symbol of status. There was a nanny van. After filming, they could sit in the nanny van and rest. Previously, Yang Bingqing also had one. However, even though she had a nanny van, she still had to fight for Yoon Shusha's resting room. However, as a newbie who had just debuted and already had her own nanny van, it was inevitable that she would be gossiped about. What are you afraid of? Who dares to gossip about you? They'll all be banned. Yoon Shusha was amused by his bold attitude. Chin Ju briefly explained the situation to her. It turned out that Muyaja was afraid that she would be tired from filming and would not be able to rest well, so he bought a nanny van for her. The nanny van was an RV. The car was parked in the production team's parking lot. Chin Ju brought Yoon Shusha to take a look. The nanny van was luxurious, with a bathroom, living room, TV, video, refrigerator, dressing table, and other facilities. Yoon Shusha did not show it on her face, but she felt sweet inside. He was actually so considerate for her, probably because he was afraid that she would be too tired from filming. In the afternoon, Yoon Shusha had just finished filming when Mushi looked for her, saying that someone was looking for her outside the production team. Who is it? Mushi shook her head. How could she know them? She only said, I don't know them. It's a man and a woman. They couldn't get into the production team, so they got someone to pass a message that they have something important to discuss with you. Coincidentally, she had just finished filming. Since someone was looking for her, it should be something important. Walking out of the set, Yoon Shusha saw Du Jiayan and Huang Lili standing at the entrance from afar. When they saw her, their faces immediately lit up with flattering smiles. This smile was too flattering, too brilliant, and had the intention of currying favor with him. As soon as she saw her, Huang Lili immediately approached her and handed her a bottle of lemonade. She then rubbed her palms together. Shusha, you must be tired from filming. Have some water first. Yun Shusha lowered her head and glanced at the water in her hand. She was startled at first. This bottle of water was of a good brand, and it was especially expensive. It probably cost more than 10 yuan per bottle. He was obviously trying to please her. But if he ignored her, he would be hiding evil intentions, wouldn't he? Thus, without even looking at it, she casually threw it into the trash can and said calmly, "Sorry, I'm afraid it's poisonous." The smile on Huang Lili's face froze, but she didn't say anything. She just said, "Look at you. What are you talking about? How could there be poison in the water? Shusha, you really like to joke. How did you find this place?" Yun Shusha's face was a little wary. Ever since the class reunion, she had received many messages from her classmates. Out of courtesy, she had also added them to the WeChat group. The WeChat group had already kicked Huang Lili out. As for what happened that day, everyone had a tacit understanding and didn't mention a word about it. They were also overly enthusiastic toward her. It's probably what happened that day, Yun Shusha guessed. Chapter 933. Yun Shusha was on high alert. What are you guys doing? Is there something you can't say here? She felt that these two were up to no good. Du Jiayan, in particular, had previously been condescending toward her, but now, he was extremely enthusiastic. His fawning face, in particular, made her even more vigilant. Don't worry, we don't have any other intentions. Don't think too much, Huang Lili said softly. Actually, it's because something happened at home. You should know. I don't know. Yun Shusha then added, I don't think it's anything important. I still have scenes to shoot, so I'll take my leave first. With that, she turned to leave. Seeing this, Du Jiayan panicked and hurried forward to stop her. In a moment of desperation, he grabbed her arm. Yun Shusha only felt the area he touched burning and immediately swatted his hand away. What are you doing? Don't get touchy. Sorry for the offense. Du Jiayan smiled obsequiously. Shusha, I've asked around at the set. You've finished filming today. He had rushed to the set earlier and handed out a few cigarettes to the security guard at the entrance. He only dared to look for Yun Shusha after knowing that she had finished filming. Yun Shusha narrowed her eyes. Seeing them like this, it seemed that something had really happened. She thought for a moment. Since it was broad daylight and they were at the entrance of the film set, they couldn't do anything to her. Thus, she said, I'm very busy. If you have something to say, don't drag it out. Then, shall we find a quiet place? Follow me. Yun Shusha turned around and walked toward the limousine. Huang Lili and Du Jiayan exchanged glances before following closely behind. However, when they saw Yun Shusha get into a limousine, they were both surprised and envious. What a grand limousine. This car must cost a few million yuan, right? Her heart was filled with jealousy and envy. Yun Shusha was no longer the same as before. People really could not be compared to each other. She looked at Du Jiayan beside her and then thought of Mu Yaja whom she had met that day. They were both boyfriends, so why was there such a huge difference? On second thought, Yun Shusha was from the entertainment industry. Rich and powerful families were particular about this. An actress like her would only be favored for a short period of time. Could it be that she could marry into a wealthy family and have a meteoric rise? The rich and powerful looked down on actors and actresses in the entertainment industry. With this thought in mind, she followed Du Jiayan into the RV. Yun Shusha poured a cup of tea for each of them. When the three of them sat down, she went straight to the point. If you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to beat around the bush. Since she had already said so, he was naturally more than happy to oblige. Hence, he said, it's like this. That day, during the class reunion, you know it, too. Is there some misunderstanding? What misunderstanding? Yun Shusha raised her eyebrows. Anyway, no matter what the misunderstanding is, it's all in the past, isn't it? Shusha, I didn't mean to offend you. You can say that I'm blind, or that I'm measuring the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Isn't it all in the past? Isn't it good to let bygones be bygones? His tone was very sincere, and his face was full of reverence. Yoon Shusha was a little confused by his words. Is there anything you can't say clearly? I really don't understand what you're saying. Chapter 934. Du Jiayan recounted the incident in detail. It turned out that, since that day at the class reunion, Du Jiayan and Huang Lily's actions had clearly offended Mu Yaja. He did not say anything because, in his eyes, small fries like Du Jiayan and Huang Lily were not worthy of his condemnation. Take the simplest example. If a mad dog barked at you by the roadside, would you bite it back? Just because he did not say anything did not mean that he would let it go. However, the things they had said and done had made him unhappy. Since he was unhappy, then he had to do something to make them unhappy as well. This was his character. On the surface, he did not say anything, but behind his back, he could flatten the Du family's foundation with just a finger. It was unknown what methods Mu Yaja used, but after that day, the Du family's projects with the Mu group were all cancelled. The cooperation was written in black and white. This matter was considered a breach of contract by the Muse, so the Du family could bring the contract to their doorstep. However, did he dare to? With the Mu group's powerful background, they could cover the sky with one hand in the capital. Where could he go to sue? Be it in the legal world, the political world, or even the Supreme Court, there were people from the Muse. The Muse had openly breached the contract and slapped them in the face, but did Du Boxiong dare to sue? He did not even dare to let out a fart. Cancel it. So be it. He still had other projects on hand. Although the cases that he had worked with Mu Group were lucrative, since his son had offended them, Du Boxiong could only grit his teeth and swallow his pride even if he was unwilling to do so. Fine, I'll admit it. What else could he do? Go against the Muse? Alas, he did not expect things to be so simple. Mu Yaja's methods were swift and decisive. He had always been ruthless. Since he had made up his mind to do something, he would not give up until he forced the other party into a dead end. The next day, news came that the boss, who had always been on good terms with Du Boxiong, had committed suicide by jumping off a building. Suicide by jumping off a building? Why did something like this happen at such a critical juncture? Du Boxiong was terrified when he thought about it. He knew very well that this matter was definitely related to the Mu Group. This was not the end of it. Several projects that he had worked with had either been maliciously acquired or exposed to scandals of collusion between officials and businessmen. One of the project's legal representative, who had worked closely with the Du family, was suspected of corruption and bribery. The amount of money involved was so large that even the central government was involved in the investigation. Du Boxiong's heart skipped a beat. In order to protect himself, he had no choice but to stop the development of the project. The unforeseen events of the past few days had caused Du Boxiong to be unable to sleep soundly. His entire being was in a trance. Due to various problems, all the cases on hand had been interrupted. How could there be such a coincidence? Why didn't it happen earlier or later? Why did it have to happen now? It was obvious that someone was behind all of this. Was the Mu Group trying to force him into a dead end? Even if the contract was terminated, the losses caused by the stagnation of the project were in the millions every day. Millions? What kind of concept was that? In just a few days, he was heavily in debt. If this continued, the Du family would be completely finished. Chapter 935. He was well aware that the Mu family was making things difficult for him. Having been in the capital for so many years, he had accumulated some connections, but at this critical juncture, he could not use them at all. He went to seek an audience, but the other party refused to see him. What a joke! Who would dare to be related to him at this time? Did he want to be taught a lesson? Du Boxiong was mentally and physically exhausted. Due to his exhaustion, he had a heart attack and was now lying in the hospital. Yoon Shusha glanced at him and then at Huang Lily. Both of them looked haggard. When it came to emotional parts, they were in tears. This was especially so for Du Jiayan, who had watched helplessly as the Du family's great foundation was destroyed in his hands. His father's foundation, which had been built over half of his life, was destroyed with just a few words from Mu Yaja. He blamed himself endlessly. Naturally, He was afraid and hated Yun Shusha. At the same time, he knew how important this woman was in Mu Yaja's heart. Even if he hated her to the core, he did not dare to offend her. Yun Shusha listened without any change in her expression, but she was also sighing in her heart. She didn't know anything about these things. However, she was also a little dazed. She did not expect that Mu Yaja could destroy the Du family with just a few words. This was too exaggerated. However, this was the truth. Yun Shusha said in a low voice, "Actually, you're asking the wrong person, right? I can't decide the life and death of the Du family. I don't have the ability to do so. But, you can definitely help us, right?" Du Jiayan looked worried. He seemed to have aged a few years overnight, with a few strands of white hair growing on his head. Huang Lili remained silent at the side. In fact, when the Du family got into trouble, she already had thoughts of retreating. Husband and wife were birds in the same forest, but when faced with a disaster, they flew away separately. Moreover, she and Du Jiayan were not married yet. With such a thing happening to the Du family, she naturally wanted to leave unscathed and find another branch. However, Du Jiayan did not know what she was thinking. He threatened that if she dared to abandon him at this critical juncture, he would kill her. Huang Lili was scared and didn't dare to do it anymore. Du Jiayan was depressed and his resentment toward Huang Lili had reached its peak. He had always been concerned about his reputation, and he loved Huang Lili very much. He used to be a playboy, but when he met Huang Lili, he wanted to settle down and start a family. But who would have thought that a class reunion would bring him such a calamity? His current mental state was already on the verge of collapse. After experiencing all these things, he suddenly became mature overnight. He also knew that he was insensible and had brought a devastating disaster to his family. Seeing Yun Shusha biting her lips and remaining silent, he suddenly made up his mind and knelt on the ground with a plop. His actions shocked Huang Lili. She immediately felt embarrassed. She was already so down and out in front of Yun Shusha, but he still knelt down in front of her. Where was she supposed to put her face? Chapter 936. He looked up and cried, "I don't care what happens to me. If you still hate me, I'll do anything you want me to do. If you want me to do it, I'll even pay with my life. Still, I beg you, let my family off." Huang Lili felt utterly humiliated. She covered her face and did not know what to do. Yun Shusha appeared calm on the surface, but deep down, she sympathized with him. "You don't have to kneel before me. I don't hate you." "Really?" He looked up, still doubtful. Yun Shusha nodded. He wasn't the one who was in the wrong. She wasn't so petty as to force him into a dead end just because of a few words. Leave some leeway in everything and leave a way out for everyone. She had always believed in this saying. If this was a punishment, then it was enough. It should end here. Then, are you willing to plead for the Du family? His eyes were misty. "I'll try." "Do you mean that you've forgiven me?" With a sincere look on his face, he repeatedly explained, "Yun Shusha, I really know my mistake. Please forgive me, all right?" "All right. Quickly get up," Yun Shusha said helplessly. Only then did he dare to get up, his face finally looking more relaxed. Seeing that Yun Shusha was willing to relent, Huang Lili felt more at ease. Yun Shusha suddenly said, "Don't misunderstand. I'm only forgiving him, not you." That was because some mistakes could never be forgiven. Huang Lili was stunned by her words. She wanted to say something, but Yun Shusha had already gotten up. "All right. I'll think of a way. You guys can go back." With that, she alighted from the limousine. She left behind a dazed Huang Lili and Du Jiayan. "Jiayan, what did she mean by that?" Du Jiayan wiped his tears, glanced at her, and snorted. "Don't you know what she said?" When Yun Shusha reached home, the sky was still bright. Yun Tianyu was teaching Xiao Ichen his homework when she pushed open the door to the study room. For the past few days, Xiao Ichen had been staying with Yo-Yo. Although Yo-Yo said that she disliked it, she did not reject it as much as before. With the two little guys together, the house was a little livelier. At least, it was not so lonely. She saw Xiao Ichen sitting in front of his desk with his exercise book spread out in front of him. He held a pen in his hand and looked like he had suffered a lot. Yo-Yo stood to the side with her arms crossed. Her face was full of disdain, and from time to time, she would hit his head with a rolled-up newspaper. Stupid. You don't even know how to answer such a simple question. Sob. Xiao Ichen blinked his eyes pitifully as if he was about to cry. Yun Shusha sighed. When Mu Yaja returned, Yun Shusha was swinging gently on the swing in the back garden. From afar, she looked as beautiful as a painting as she sat among the Chinese roses. He walked over and hugged her from behind. Yun Shusha looked up and saw him. She smiled. You're back. Mu Yaja kissed her forehead. When did you come back? Around 3 p.m. I ended early today. Oh, right. She giggled. Thank you for giving me the RV. I like it a lot. Mu Yaja's lips curled into a smile, but he did not say anything. He only gave her a gentle push, and the rope of the swing swayed slightly. Mu Yaja. She suddenly moved her lips and spoke. Du Jiayan looked for me today, Yun Shusha said slowly. Chapter 937. His looking for you. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows. Did you do those things? Yun Shusha probed. Mu Yaja did not say anything, but he knew what she was referring to. He did not say anything, but he did not deny it either. The swing slowly came to a stop. Mu Yaja stood behind her quietly. Yun Shusha said again, let the Du family off. He grabbed her chin. His eyes were cold, and his voice was cold. Why? Are you feeling sorry for him? No. Why would I feel sorry for him? Yun Shusha laughed. I just think that if it's a punishment, it's already heavy enough. You don't have to force him to a dead end, right? Mu Yaja snorted. Me. You stupid woman, you're so kind. You're forgiving him just like that. I'm forgiving him, but I didn't say that I'm forgiving Huang Lily. I won't ask what you do to Huang Lily, but the Du family is innocent, Yun Shusha said sincerely. Mu Yaja looked at her clear and charming eyes. He suddenly lowered his head and sealed her red lips. He pressed his lips against hers and said in a low voice, okay. I promise you that I'll let him off. Yun Shusha pecked him on the lips. He said, but I won't let that woman off. She pursed her lips but did not say anything. She would not forgive that woman either. After all, Huang Lily was really despicable. She was not generous enough to forgive someone who had hurt her so wantonly. Yo-Yo had finished preparing dinner. He had specially made red braised pork for dinner tonight. However, when Yun Shusha sat at the table, she looked at the greasy meat on the plate and smelled it. She suddenly felt disgusted. She forced herself to hold it in. Her face was already showing signs of discomfort. Mommy, I specially made braised pork for you. It's your favorite. Yo-Yo smiled gently and was very considerate. Yun Shusha nodded. She picked up her chopsticks and picked up a piece of meat. She suppressed the nausea and put the meat into her mouth. She took a bite, and the fresh meat juice overflowed in her mouth. The nausea grew stronger. Her shoulders shuddered, and she had no choice but to spit the meat out. Yo-Yo frowned. Mommy, what's wrong? Mommy really liked the braised pork he made. Why was she acting so weird today? Could it be that he wasn't performing well and his cooking wasn't good? Yo-Yo did not believe her and took a bite. It was fresh and fragrant. It was delicious. Then why did Mommy spit the meat out? Yo-Yo suddenly felt hurt. Yun Shusha saw his hurt face and immediately said, Yo-Yo, you cooked very well. Then Mommy doesn't seem to have much of an appetite today. Yo-Yo added, that's right. Mommy's appetite hasn't been good recently. I don't know why, so I made braised pork to adjust her appetite. Yun Shusha was afraid that Yo-Yo would be upset. She picked up the meat in the bowl. However, when she looked down and saw the delicious glow of the braised pork, she could not eat it no matter how delicious it was. Just thinking about it made her shiver. She covered her mouth and ran to the bathroom. She threw herself beside the toilet and retched. Mu Yaja walked to the bathroom. Seeing her in such a sorry state, his gaze changed. What's wrong? Yun Shusha did not have time to reply to him. She retched again. Mu Yaja suddenly thought of something. Her symptoms seemed like she was pregnant. Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen ran over worriedly. Seeing Yun Shusha retching, Yo-Yo was especially nervous. His little hands tugged at the corner of his shirt. He was very worried. Chapter 938. Mommy isn't feeling well. You guys eat first. Muyaja waved the two little munchkins aside. Yo-Yo pouted unwillingly but still obediently returned to the dining table with Xiao Ichen. However, she had lost her appetite. After vomiting for a while, she picked up the gargle cup to rinse her mouth. Muyaja walked to her side. The mirror reflected the strange smile on his lips. What's wrong? Are you not feeling well? Muyaja. Yun Shusha pursed her lips and looked embarrassed. I feel that something is wrong. What's wrong? He asked in a low voice. However, Yun Shusha did not see the happiness in his eyes. Yun Shusha blushed. She looked up at him and asked awkwardly, previously, when you were doing that, did you do what? He seemed to be provoking her as his handsome face inched closer. That, Yun Shusha pursed her lips again. She was embarrassed and annoyed at the same time. How could this man be so evil? He was obviously teasing her. She pursed her lips and did not speak. Her face was red and embarrassed, and she looked very innocent. Did you use any safety measures? No. Did you put it all inside? Yun Shusha's voice was so soft that it was almost inaudible. Muyaja felt that her expression was very interesting. He couldn't help but peck her cheek gently. Are you pregnant? I don't know. But I don't have much of an appetite recently. Moreover, I often vomit in the morning. My period hasn't come for a long time. Her voice became softer as she spoke. Muyaja raised his eyebrows. His pupils dilated slightly and the corners of his lips lifted slightly. The two of them formed a stark contrast. One was happy and the other was worried. Yun Shusha did not notice the change in Muyaja's expression. She continued, if I'm pregnant, it'll be bad. Muyaja's lips turned cold. Yun Shusha pushed him unhappily. It's all your fault. Why didn't you take any precautions? She muttered and threw herself at him. Muyaja frowned and asked, why do you need to take precautions? Because I don't want to get pregnant. Yun Shusha said matter-of-factly. You don't want to give birth? The smile on Muyaja's face disappeared. Her words were like a bucket of cold water poured over him. His face turned completely cold. He suddenly turned her body around and grabbed her chin. His tone was slightly unhappy and dangerous. What's wrong? You don't. This woman said that she didn't want to get pregnant, or did she not want to have his child? Yun Shusha saw the dangerous aura in his eyes. She was a little scared, but she said, I don't want to get pregnant at this time. Besides, she already had Xiao Ichen and Yo-Yo. These two babies were enough. Muyaja narrowed his eyes. He was in a good mood to have his child, but she looked very distressed. Naturally, he was unhappy. I don't care if you want to or not. His domineering attitude was obvious at this moment. Yun Shusha pursed her lips. I might be pregnant. Muyaja did not allow her to say anything. He grabbed her hand and looked like he was going to walk out. Yun Shusha struggled. She was a little shocked. She thought that he was going to do something. She was alert. What are you doing? What are you doing? Going to the hospital, he said, not allowing her to resist. Chapter 939. His arrival alerted the deputy director who was on duty. He rushed over with a group of people and waited for him at the door. Muyaja put his arm around Yun Shusha's shoulder. He glanced at them and said, give her a checkup. Remember, there's no room for mistakes. Once he gave the order, his subordinates naturally carried it out without any hesitation. After a series of tests, the doctor read the report and said, Chairman Mu, the test results are out. She's not pregnant. Not pregnant. Muyaja raised his eyebrows. He was obviously surprised by this result. Yun Shusha was equally surprised. She was shocked at first, but then her heart calmed down. Muyaja glanced at her, the displeasure in his heart reaching its peak. Then, why have I been retching recently? What's going on? Also, my period hasn't come for a long time. The doctor replied, Retching is usually caused by superficial gastritis. It's related to weak stomach qi and heat. You should pay more attention to your diet and avoid raw, cold, and spicy foods. We'll see how it goes. As for your period not coming, it's probably due to an endocrine imbalance. His tone was cautious and respectful. May I know if you've been working late? Yes. Yoon Shusha nodded. Recently, she had been working late to film and catch up with the schedule. It wasn't that filming was tiring, but sometimes she had to wait on the set even if she didn't have any scenes. If you mind, it's best to work and rest regularly. Otherwise, an endocrine imbalance will cause your period to be delayed. The doctor gave her a lot of advice again. However, Mu Yaja's expression was completely cold. On the way back, his expression was cold and he didn't say a word. Yoon Shusha couldn't help but laugh in her heart. Why? Are you disappointed that I'm not pregnant? Mu Yaja looked straight ahead. It was more than just disappointment. In short, Yoon Shusha was naturally happy that she wasn't pregnant. After the filming, there would be a long promotional period and they would need to do roadshows all over the country. She stole a glance at him. Seeing his cold expression, she felt a little helpless. That night, just as she lay on the bed, Mu Yaja's tall body covered her. Yoon Shusha was startled. She saw his handsome face close to hers. His eyes were unfathomable, but they were filled with turbulence. She retreated slightly until her back was against the headboard of the bed. However, he closed in on her step by step, like a hunter who was determined to win. Yoon Shusha pursed her lips and became even more alert. What are you doing? Mu Yaja blew a breath of air on her cheek. He was as charming as an orchid. Do what I love to do. Swish. Yoon Shusha's face immediately turned hot. It was so red that it looked like it was dripping blood. This man, how could he calmly say such words that made her blush? Mu Yaja pressed her forehead, pinched her waist with his big palm, and his thin lips outlined a charming and hopeless arc. You say, should I work harder? What's there to work for? A certain man said evilly, when the flowers bloom, they bear fruit. The flowers bloomed, in the end. Gosh, what a connotation. Yoon Shusha's face was unreasonably hot. Covering her face, she felt that this man could be really evil sometimes. I don't want to give birth anymore. Yoon Shusha's face fell. I already have Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen. Not enough. Chapter 940. Yoon Shusha struggled, but Mu Yaja would not allow her to escape. His large palm pressed against her waist, and her entire body was pressed against his. A certain part of their bodies was pressed tightly against each other. Yoon Shusha pursed her lips. Let's have another daughter. His gaze was clear, and he did not allow her to object. His thin lips pressed against hers. Yoon Shusha's protest was completely drowned out by his aggressive kiss. That night, Mu Yaja was especially hardworking. Outside the door, the two little lads tiptoed and pressed their ears against the door, eavesdropping on the secret behind the door. The two of them looked at each other. One of them was puzzled, while the other was blushing and speechless. Yo-Yo. Xiao Ichen gently poked Yo-Yo's waist and whispered into his ear, "What are Daddy and Mommy doing?" Yo-Yo already had a guilty conscience. When Xiao Ichen suddenly pressed against him, he was shocked and patted his chest. Then, he gave him a disdainful slap on his face and pushed him away. This is philosophy. You don't understand. Xiao Ichen was dumbfounded. He pressed against him again. Then do you understand? Yo-Yo cleared his throat. His face was a little red as he turned around and went back to the room. Xiao Ichen followed behind him and closed the door. He smiled and asked, Yo-Yo, then, what does blooming and bearing fruit mean? I'm not telling you. Tell me. You're so smart. You should know what it means. Actually, Yo-Yo did not really understand the meaning of blooming and bearing fruit. However, in front of Xiao Ichen, he had to pretend that he knew everything. I won't tell you. Yo-Yo pursed her lips and deliberately kept her in suspense. Xiao Ichen was a little angry. She pushed him onto the bed and reached out to pinch his waist. She pinched his sensitive spots and started to attack him from both sides. Yo-Yo couldn't take it anymore. She was about to laugh out loud. Tell me, Mu Ichen. Ha 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 ha. Let go of me. Xiao Chen enjoyed the sight of Yo-Yo begging for mercy under his body with satisfaction. This was a tried and tested trick. Yo-Yo was the least ticklish. Mu-Chen. Ha ha ha. No more. It's so itchy. Ha ha ha. The commotion was so loud that it alarmed the two people in the master bedroom. Yun Shusha glanced at Mu Yaja and laughed. The two of you haven't slept yet? Don't bother about them. Mu Yaja was unhappy that her attention was on something else. He lowered his head and sealed her soft lips. Thus, the room was filled with romance. The Mu residence. Mu Wanru paced back and forth in the study. She did not dare to go out now because she knew that no matter where she went, Mu Lianjue would send people to follow her. Aaron's death the last time was undoubtedly a warning to her. After interacting with him for a while, she knew that he would not like others to go against his plans and act on their own. In this aspect, he was very similar to Mu Yaja. Her private meeting with Aaron that day had undoubtedly angered him. However, even if he had a card up his sleeve, Mu Wanru still felt uneasy. The media conference was imminent. Mu Yaja had already arranged everything. In another week's time, there would be a grand press conference to announce their marriage. However, after a psychological battle, Mu Wanru suddenly realized that this media conference might not be as simple as it seemed. What about Yun Shusha? Chapter 941. Why was Mu Lianjue still not taking action to get rid of these two scourges? Mu Wanru was, without a doubt, in a state of panic. She felt that Mu Lianjue could not be trusted completely. Just as she was feeling anxious, there was a sudden knock on the door. The sudden movement almost scared Mu Wanru out of her wits. The servant pushed the door open and was startled to see her pale face. Young madam, are you trying to scare me to death? Mu Wanru's eyes were sharp and her tone was frosty. The servant shrunk her shoulders in fright and did not dare to breathe loudly. She did knock on the door and thought that there was no one in the study, so she came in to clean it. Get out. Yes, the servant didn't dare to show any signs of disobedience and retreated in fear. Mu Wanru walked to the window and looked at the gloomy weather outside. She secretly decided that if Mu Lianjue still did not take action, she would quickly take action to get rid of Yun Shusha and Yun Tianyu. It was getting late, but Yun Shusha was still not back. Mu Yaja had specially reminded Lin Fengtian that the filming could not be delayed so late. Usually, she would be back at 5:30 p.m. at the latest, but there was still no sign of her today. Mu Yaja found it strange. He called her phone, but it was switched off. It was probably out of battery. After waiting for a while, it started to rain outside. It was almost 7 p.m., but there was still no sign of her. Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen sat at the dining table. They refused to have dinner and insisted on waiting for their mommy to return. Mu Yaja was a little distraught, afraid that she would meet with an accident on the way back. With the Mu group's influence, they had many enemies. Due to the fierce competition for business interests, they had many enemies, including many gang leaders. This was also the reason why he did not want Yun Shusha to step into the entertainment industry. Could it be that she was in danger? Mu Yaja could no longer sit still at the thought of this. He stood up and walked toward the door, wanting to call his assistant to settle some matters. However, just as he was about to change his clothes, the door was flung open. Yun Shusha rushed into the bathroom with a cardboard box in her arms. Her face was full of smiles, and she looked very happy. Mu Yaja was fuming. Where exactly did this woman go and come back? However, when he stormed into the bathroom, he saw Yun Shusha standing on the spot, drenched from head to toe. She carefully held a small cardboard box. Inside the box was a drenched puppy. A puppy? Why did she bring a puppy back? Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen walked over and saw the puppy. Both of them loved small animals, especially newborn puppies. They could not resist it. Hence, they surrounded the cardboard box and stared at the puppy. Yun Shusha looked even happier when she saw him. Her eyes lit up as she raised the cardboard box in her hands as though she was presenting a treasure. She smiled and said, Mu Yaja, look. A puppy. Mu Yaja could not help but raise his eyebrows. I recognize this as a puppy. Where did you get it? Yun Shusha giggled as she spun and jumped around with the box in her arms. I picked it up from the roadside. Look, isn't it cute? It's so cute. As she spoke, she walked over to him with the cardboard box in her arms. Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen followed behind her. Xiao Ichen, in particular, stood on his tiptoes to look at the puppy. Chapter 942. Yo-Yo glanced at him from the corner of his eyes and sneered, "Yes, it's so much like you." You. Xiao Ichen was so angry that he pouted and glared at him. The puppy was silly and didn't know what was going on. It lay there aggrievedly and didn't know how to act cute to get a good impression of it or whimper to ask for sympathy. It only looked at the man pitifully with its innocent but slightly resentful black eyes. The puppy was drenched from head to toe in the rain. Who knew how many days it had been since it last showered? It was extremely dirty. However, that pair of eyes gave him an inexplicable sense of familiarity. When he saw the woman's bright eyes again, he frowned helplessly. Yun Shusha smiled and said, "What do you think? Isn't this puppy cute? Mu Yaja, let's adopt it." "No way." Mu Yaja rejected her without thinking. He reached out and pinched the puppy's ear with his orchid fingers. He glared at her and said, "We already have one at home. We can't afford to raise a second one." As soon as he pinched its ears, the puppy began to howl in panic. It was obvious that it had received a great shock. "We can't afford to raise it." Yun Shusha choked on his earth-shattering words. However, she suddenly realized that something was wrong with his words. She followed his gaze and looked at herself up and down. Only then did she realize who he was referring to when he said he already had one at home. She said angrily, "Hey, didn't we agree not to make personal attacks? If you like it, I'll take you to a famous pet store tomorrow and buy you a decent poodle." This puppy was really too dirty. Mu Yaja tugged at the puppy's ears again. The poor puppy felt extremely wronged after being teased like this. It whined a few times with tears in its eyes and shrank back into the box. Xiao Ichen's heart ached. He immediately took the cardboard box from Yun Shusha's arms and looked down at the puppy lovingly. "Daddy, don't bully it." Yun Shusha slapped his fingers away from the puppy and grumpily said, "I like this one. I don't like the others. If you don't want to raise it, I'll raise it. Anyway, I've decided. You like this dirty puppy that much?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows at her and asked. Yun Shusha said angrily, "What's dirty? It's just that it's not showering. After it showers, I guarantee that its snowy white body will be cleaner than yours." "Oh." Mu Yaja's interest was piqued. He achened his eyes and his eyes. "I'd like to see how you're going to wash this brown hair white." Yun Shusha was momentarily speechless. This man was really good at picking holes in other people's word. She lowered her head and looked at the pitiful puppy. Her heart ached a little. She reached out and touched the puppy's wet fur. It wasn't that she was being kind. It was just that she had found this abandoned puppy on the side of the road when she and Han Mushi had gone to buy ice cream during their lunch break. She had only taken a glance at it and thought that this puppy was quite pitiful. She thought that there would be kind-hearted people who would pick it up in the afternoon. Thus, she went back to work at the company. Chapter 943. She ran to the side of the street again, but the puppy was still there. Perhaps it was too dirty, so no one was willing to spend the effort to take it in. Perhaps the dog had some infectious disease. Now that the standard of living was high, even if someone wanted to raise a dog, they could spend a few $100 to buy one. It was better than picking one up from the roadside. Perhaps it was because the dog hadn't eaten for a day, or 2 days, or even longer, that it was so hungry that it kept barking. Its pair of dark eyes were misty with tears, and it was so pitiful that it was whimpering. This dog was still too small. The cardboard box was still quite tall, and such a small dog was trapped inside. When it saw Yun Shusha, its 2 small paws scratched the box, but it couldn't jump out. If no one picked it up, it would probably starve to death. Yun Shusha didn't care if the dog had some infectious disease. She complained about the dog's owner's heartless heart as she carried the box around to look for food. After feeding it some food, she thought to herself that she should let the dog go. After all, the person at home was a serious germaphobe. But it was raining heavily, and it would be wet all night. That would be really pitiful. Moreover, the dog was still so small. What if it was accidentally run over while crossing the road? When she fed the dog, its small tongue licked her fingertips. It was soft, as if it was trying to please her, and also as if it was grateful. This little guy's teeth weren't fully grown yet. She suddenly thought of herself when she was young. She had also been abandoned in the orphanage, just like the dog. No one cared about her, and she had no one to rely on. Thus, her heart began to ache. Following that, with her head bleeding and the dog in her arms, Yoon Shusha fearlessly returned with the dog in her arms. At that moment, her expression was like that of a revolutionary martyr. Anyway, I'm going to raise this dog. How about it? Anyway, I won't throw it away. It's so pitiful. If I throw it away, it will die. There was a hint of a threat in her words. Mu Yaja coldly sized up the woman and dog in front of him. When did this woman become so bold? Yoon Shusha saw that he was sizing her up, but she was not afraid. She puffed up her chest and snorted coldly to show her determination. Mu Yaja was helpless and said coolly, "It's not impossible to raise them." Before he could finish his sentence, Yoon Shusha jumped 3 feet high and cheered loudly, Mu Yaja, you're the best." Mu Yaja's face immediately turned ashen. He had heard that pets carried a lot of germs. Was it possible to be so close to pets? What if he had a disease? Has this dog been vaccinated? Is your body healthy? You only know how to bring it back. Mu Yaja saw that she was about to approach him with the dog in her arms. He quickly took a few steps back without leaving a trace. His expression was not the usual kind of disdain. But there are 3 rules. Yoon Shusha nodded without thinking. Her pair of sparkling eyes were like that of a doted puppy. One had to know that a clean freak like him was willing to take in this dirty puppy. It was already a great gift. The dog in the cardboard box also poked its small head out. Its pair of black eyes stared at Mu Yaja. It blinked, feeling wronged and sad. It sized him up and tilted its head from time to time. Chapter 944. This dog was brought back by Yoon Shusha. She was also the one who said that she wanted to raise it. Naturally, the dog's daily life was left to Yoon Shusha to take care of. For the sake of hygiene, this dog had to be raised on the 2nd floor. Its nest could only be placed there and it could not take a step downstairs. Even its meals could only be eaten on the 2nd floor. Naturally, the showers and dog food were all Yoon Shusha's business. Other than that, he could not find any dog hair in the house. He could not see any dog paw prints on the 1st floor, not to mention excrement. If he saw it, he would slap it 50 times. Anyway, the rules were very simple. Under his watch, this dog could not be seen. If Yoon Shusha wanted to play with the dog, she had to go to the 2nd floor. Yoon Shusha, on the other hand, was a little unhappy. How was this a 3-point agreement? It was almost 30. She muttered under her breath, "How heartless. Are you a dog's father, too?" Mu Yaja glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. With a noble and cold expression, he said, "My genes are very normal. I can't give birth to a dog." Yoon Shusha choked again. She lowered her head, patted the dog's head, and said, "Come, call me daddy." The puppy seemed to understand Yoon Shusha's words. It looked at Mu Yaja as if it understood. How could such a small puppy know how to bark? At this time, it could only whimper. Facing Mu Yaja's direction, the puppy opened its small mouth and whimpered pitifully again. Then, it ended with a big yawn. Mu Yaja was speechless. "Mu Yaja, look, your son is begging you. Don't be so harsh." As it spoke, it reached out to scratch Mu Yaja's clothes. Mu Yaja remembered that the hand had touched the dog just now. Hence, he felt disgusted again. He moved far away and said coldly, "Don't touch me if you don't wash your hands." Yoon Shusha said, "Baby, your daddy is disgusted with us." "Baby? Right, is it a male or female?" "Male." "Are you sure it's male? I've seen it before." Yoon Shusha was still worried. She picked up the dog again and touched its penis with her fingertips. A certain man immediately said fiercely, "Don't touch." "Damn it, what if this dog has some kind of germs on it?" "Mommy, let's take it to the pet hospital for a bath and check if it's sick," Yo-Yo suggested. So, after the family of 4 finished eating, they drove the dog all the way to the pet club. When they rushed over, they were just about to close the door and go home. When they saw Yun Shusha rushing over with the dog, they hurriedly said, "Hey, miss, I'm sorry. Our shop is closed. Haha. Help me take a bath. While you're at it, you can also get a vaccine or something," Yun Shusha said with a smile. The shop owner was dumbfounded. He had to come here to take a bath. He didn't know if such a small dog could take a bath. Besides, couldn't the vaccine be done tomorrow? Moreover, this dog was so small and dirty. It looked like it had just been picked up. They had to wait for it to adapt to the environment before giving it an injection. Just as the shop owner was about to decline, a tall figure suddenly appeared behind Yun Shusha. Muyaja stood behind her with a frosty expression. His eyes were as sharp as ice blades. When he saw that the shop owner was about to close, his face darkened. He seemed to be very dissatisfied with the shop owner's actions. Hence, he snorted coldly. "Open the door. Oh my God." Chapter 945. The owner was so frightened by his gaze that his whole body shivered. He didn't even dare to question or refute. He turned around and fiddled with the door lock. He secretly cursed in his heart. Did this man have to be so fierce? Look at that gaze, it was as if he owed him millions. He was just opening a pet club. He wouldn't have offended anyone, right? What a scary man. Could it be that he's part of a gang? If he didn't open the door, was he going to shoot him? Thus, a certain owner who was about to go home for dinner was forced to stay in the shop and began to work hard to check the dog. Fortunately, although the dog was abandoned, it had all 4 limbs and was very healthy. It was already more than 3 months old. However, the breed of dogs was small, so this dog wouldn't grow much bigger. It was a cute little Pomeranian. It had caught a slight cold because it was caught in the rain. After bathing the dog, trimming its hair, giving it a shot of vaccine and deworming, it was done. Yun Shusha carried the clean puppy and looked left and right. The puppy was adorable after its bath. It had a pair of big, bright eyes, beautiful fur, and pointy ears. It was very cute. This time, she was finally satisfied. Muyaja threw down the money and was about to leave, but the owner was an honest man. Seeing that the money was too much, he couldn't help but say kindly, "Sir, you gave a little too much money." Muyaja suddenly turned around and glared at him. "Take it. Don't talk nonsense." The owner was smart again. He was just short of answering a general's order in the army. Li Zheng slightly relaxed. Yes. On this end, Yun Shusha was satisfied. Since the dog was well, she was naturally in a good mood. She bought some cute supplies from the pet club and busied herself on the 2nd floor for a long time before she finished decorating the kennel. Yun Shusha looked at the kennel she had decorated and felt that it was very warm. Thus, she happily put the puppy in. At first, the dog wasn't used to it, but after a while, it got used to it and liked the bedroom Yun Shusha decorated. Thus, she excitedly fed it. She busied herself for half a day on the 2nd floor, fiddling with it for a long time before she reluctantly walked down. Just as she walked down the stairs, Yun Shusha heard the dog's uneasy barking. It seemed that it had lost its sense of security after leaving Yun Shusha, or it was afraid of the dark like Yun Shusha. In short, it was restless. Yun Shusha was also flustered by the puppy's pitiful cries. She turned back to look at it 3 times with every step. In the end, she could not bear it any longer and ran toward the kennel, shouting, "Little Zhaja, little Zhaja." That seemed to be the name she gave to this puppy. Muyaja, who was sitting on the sofa and reading the financial newspaper, could not help but turn ashen. This woman, did she have to give the dog such a name? It was really ear-piercing to him. Yun Shusha stayed on the 2nd floor and didn't come down. Muyaja was a little dissatisfied. He thought sourly in his heart that he was regretting taking in this damn male dog. This woman was too much. She only had so little time after work, and now she gave it all to this stupid dog. He didn't know what was so good about this damn dog. Was it as handsome as him? Was it as rich as him? Was it as charming as him? Chapter 946. Muyaja gritted his teeth and thought, find a chance, oh no, when Yun Shusha wasn't around, he would kick this stupid dog out, so that it wouldn't interfere with his private life. After a long time, Shusha reluctantly walked downstairs. She saw Yaja sitting on the sofa, looking a little unhappy. She seemed to have thought of something, so she sat beside him with a smile and leaned on him coquettishly. Yaja couldn't help but glance at this little woman coldly. Why? Did this woman finally know how to be grateful to him? She also knew that she had neglected him. She also knew how to curry favor with him. How could he not know what this little woman was thinking? So he pretended to be indifferent and didn't look at her. His voice was cold and emotionless. What's the matter? Yaja, I have something to tell you. She sounded so intimate when she called the dog's name, but she sounded so distant when she called him. Yaja felt a little sour because of this. It couldn't be anything good for her to say. Could it be that she had to do something to compensate him? Seeing that Yaja didn't speak, Shusha simply said bluntly, let's hire a nanny for the dog. When Yaja heard this, the corners of his eyes suddenly twitched violently. Hire a nanny for the dog. He thought that this woman's thoughts were easy to understand, but now he had seen it for himself. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. Seeing that his face was getting gloomier, Shusha was a little puzzled. She didn't know what this man was thinking. His expression was so ugly. She didn't seem to have said anything wrong, so she didn't care about him and told him her doubts. Here's what I think. Think about it. There are usually only the two of us in this apartment. You usually have to go to the office, and I have to go to work. The dog is so small, and there's no one to take care of it. Why don't we hire a nanny? Yaja glared at her coldly. He looked away childishly and snorted. Waste of money. Waste of money? Shusha was shocked. Her delicate body trembled, and her mouth opened into a big O shape. Waste of money. This word actually came out of the mouth of a nouveau riche who had always been a spendthrift. This kind of feeling was too strong. It was too shocking. Shusha felt very unconvinced. Thus, she made another good suggestion. Since that's the case, I'll have to trouble you to take care of it for a while. When you go to the office, bring it with you. The man snorted. I'm sorry, I'm very busy. She couldn't help but worry, she couldn't help but hold on her face, muttered, that little Zhuzha is it at home, will starve to death sssts. Shusha pushed him away unhappily and said seriously, little Zhuzha, this name is so cute. Doesn't it sound familiar? As she spoke, she hugged him and kissed his cheek. Young Master Moose's cold's handsome face was suddenly dyed with a strange red. He glared at her coldly again, only to see Shusha pointing at his face in surprise. Yaja, you're actually blushing. A certain man became even angrier. Shut up. Feeling that murderous gaze, Shusha was instantly intimidated. She sat on the sofa obediently and didn't dare to move. Send the dog away before tomorrow night. Chapter 947. Why? I don't like dogs. But I like it. Yaja turned to face her with a dangerous glint in his eyes. Choose between me and it. Shusha said without hesitation, I choose little Zhuzha. Stupid woman, you said it. I'll kick this stupid dog out of the house tomorrow. After saying that, he stood up. Shusha watched as Yaja walked into the study and slammed the door loudly. She couldn't help but be amused by him. Was this man jealous? How childish of him to be so serious with a puppy. Speaking of which, he had made an agreement with Shusha. Young Master Moo had said that no matter what, that stupid dog couldn't come downstairs. But today, this rule was broken by a certain woman. Early in the morning, Yaja opened his eyes and met a pair of blinking dog eyes. After being stunned for a moment, he was completely stunned. That stupid dog saw that he was stunned and found it interesting, so it stuck out its pink and tender tongue and licked the tip of his nose. This lick caused trouble. Yaja's morning temper and his misophobic eyes exploded. His hands immediately grabbed the dog's neck tightly, ruthlessly ravaged. When he thought that dogs couldn't change their habit of eating shit, he thought of that especially dirty tongue. But now, this stupid dog actually used such a dirty tongue to lick him. Damn it. The dog's neck was choked by him just like that. Although he didn't use much strength, it was such a small dog after all. This bit of strength was enough to make it suffer. Therefore, in addition to being frightened, they let out a series of tragic howls. The dog mother who heard the news was still making breakfast when she saw the man and dog staring at each other. She was nervous and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Without thinking, she rushed over to save the puppy that was in deep trouble. She slapped the man hard and said angrily, "Muyaja, let go of me. I'm going to die." It took a lot of effort to separate them. Shusha hugged the dog, who was about to roll his eyes, and said angrily, "Muyaja, what are you doing? Why was he so ruthless? If I came a step later, little Ju would have been strangled to death by you." Muyaja glared at her and snorted coldly. "Just in time. Let's have dog stew tonight." Shusha murmured, "How can you be so vicious?" It seemed that not only was this man's mouth poisonous, his heart was poisonous as well. Muyaja looked straight at her, squinted his eyes, and said faintly, "I clearly remember, we have agreed on 3 points. This dog cannot come downstairs." When Shusha heard this, she couldn't help but feel guilty. She stuck out her tongue, turned around, and ran away. When Muyaja sat at the dining table, the dog had already been coaxed upstairs by Shusha. The man didn't seem to be in a good mood. Oh, that wasn't important. What was important was that he didn't vent his anger on her. Shusha also knew that she had indeed gone overboard. She saw that the dog was so cute, clean, and fragrant. She wanted to take the opportunity to build a good relationship between the father and son. In the end, she didn't expect Muyaja's misophobia to act up. It was too scary. Chapter 948. Muyaja glanced at her coldly from the corner of his eyes. He narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice, "I think you've misunderstood something." Shusha was stunned. "What?" "It's not that I dislike dogs. I just don't like dogs at all. Of course, dog meat is an exception." After he said that, he glanced at Shusha meaningfully. His words were actually a little threatening. But to be honest, he really didn't eat dog meat. At most, he was just scaring a certain silly woman. Shusha was obviously frightened by his words. She quickly said, "What are you doing? What evil intentions do you have? You're not going to do anything to little Zhe, are you?" Muyaja raised his eyebrows. "I haven't done anything yet. If I eat it, what can you do?" Shusha was a straightforward person. In her anxiety, she said something shocking. "Damn it. I'll eat you." Muyaja was stunned. Then, he revealed a teasing and devilish smile. "All right, I'd like to see how you're going to eat me." Shusha did not react to his words at first, but when she saw the playful look in his eyes, no matter how stupid she was, she finally understood what he meant. A strange blush crept up her cheeks, and she turned her face away in embarrassment and anger, refusing to look at him again. Muyaja thought that this woman was really too cute. She was even cuter than a dog. He hadn't even done anything yet, and she was already blushing. Thinking about that, he couldn't help but chuckle. Seeing him laugh, Shusha felt even more unnatural. Thus, she stuffed a piece of bread into his mouth and said with a frown, "Eat your breakfast. Go to work after you're done." After breakfast, Shusha stood at the door with the puppy and the pet kennel. She looked at Muyaja, who was wearing a suit leisurely. She opened her mouth to say something but stopped herself. It wasn't until Muyaja walked to the door and glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. Just as he was about to leave, Shusha finally threw caution to the wind and spoke. Muyaja stopped in his tracks and started to nitpick. "Who's that?" Shusha was at a loss for words. She was stunned for half a second before she corrected herself. "Zhe." It was rare for them to call each other so intimately. Muyaja was satisfied with this title. Seeing the smile on his face, Shusha hurriedly walked forward and said with a smile, "Zhe, my company doesn't allow dog." Muyaja's attitude was very indifferent. "Oh, so?" Shusha pointed at the dog. "Do you think you can do it?" Muyaja turned around and looked at her thoughtfully. Then he said coldly, "My company also prohibits employees from bringing pets." Shusha hurriedly walked forward and tidied his tie and clothes. She blinked her eyes and pretended to be cute. She pouted and said coquettishly, "Muyaja, you're the boss anyway. You're the big boss. No one dares to say anything if you bring a pet." Mu Yaja narrowed his eyes and said, "The company's CEO is taking the lead to violate the rules and regulations?" Yun Shusha was speechless. She clicked her tongue. "Is it that serious?" Mu Yaja said, "Yes." Yun Shusha was a little sympathetic. "That's because you're not imposing enough. Under normal circumstances, even if the boss brings a lion, tiger, elephant, or even a woman to work, the employees wouldn't dare to bring a little hamster." Mu Yaja said, "Women are pets too?" Yun Shusha said, "Little Zhezha isn't a pet either. He's your son." Chapter 949. Yun Shusha's coaxing and pestering were all to no avail. She hugged the dog and refused to let go. If she really left the dog alone at home, it would definitely starve to death. How could she bear to see the puppy suffer at such a young age? Hence, she clenched her teeth and grabbed the corner of Mu Yaja's shirt pitifully. She shook the corner of his shirt and said, "Daddy." Her words had hit the nail on the head. Mu Yaja turned his head slowly and glanced at her. Yun Shusha pursed her lips and made up her mind. She raised the dog in front of him and said, "Take it in for a while." I'll agree to one condition." Mu Yaja looked at her for 3 seconds and suddenly asked, "Anything?" Yun Shusha nodded vigorously. Mu Yaja said, "One is not enough. I want 3. Yun Shusha's eyes widened in astonishment. "Why are you still bargaining?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. "Why? You don't want to?" After that, he pretended to leave. Yun Shusha hurriedly pulled him back. She gritted her teeth and said, "Fine. 3 it is. You have to treat it well. You're not allowed to starve it or hit it." Mu Yaja did not reply, which meant that he had agreed. "Send it to my car." Yun Shusha giggled and carried the dog into the car. Her eagerness finally made Mu Yaja lose his composure. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Mu Yaja first sent Yun Shusha to the company. When he arrived at the company, the security guard opened the car door. Mu Yaja threw the keys into his hand and asked him to park the car as usual. When he got out of the car, he seemed to have thought of something. He turned around and instructed the security guard, "Send that stupid dog to my office." "Yes, CEO Mu." When Minute Yu escorted the puppy to the CEO's office, it attracted a lot of attention. "Hey, Special Assistant Minute, is that a puppy you're holding? Isn't it forbidden to bring pets to work?" "Special Assistant Minute, you're taking the lead in violating the company's rules." Minute Yu replied, "This is the CEO's dog. He asked me to bring it to the office." As soon as he said that, the employees instantly changed their expressions and exclaimed, "Oh, not only is Chairman Mu handsome, even his puppy is so cute. Yes, yes. What a cute dog. I didn't expect President Mu to be so kind. I heard that men who like small animals must be very gentle inside." Minute Yu fell silent. Little Zhezha was sent to the CEO's office. In the morning, Mu Yaja had 2 board meetings. Naturally, Minute Yu had to follow him and take notes. Before the meeting, Minute Yu fed the puppy some water. Little Zhezha was obviously frightened to be in an unfamiliar environment. Its whole body was trembling. It raised its small and cute head and looked at Minute Yu as if he was a demon king. Its body was trembling even more. When it saw the water that Minute Yu gave it, it twitched its nose vigilantly. After sniffing for a long time, it stuck out its pink tongue and licked it a few times. Patter, patter. Minute Yu saw how cute it was and couldn't help but reach out to touch it. Little Zhezha shrank back in shock. However, when it realized that Minute Yu didn't seem to have any bad intentions, it squinted its eyes and licked Minute Yu's fingers a few times. The puppy's teeth weren't fully grown yet. It didn't feel much pain when it bit Minute Yu's hand. It just felt itchy and numb. Minute Yu's heart was about to melt. "Oh, it's so cute. Special Assistant Minute, the meeting is about to start." An assistant knocked on the door and reminded him. Chapter 950. Seeing that he had left, Little Zhezha panicked. It was all alone in such a large and unfamiliar environment. It immediately screamed helplessly and sadly a few times. Seeing that no one was paying attention to it, it whimpered sadly for a long time. "Awoo, awoo." It covered its mouth and cried like a baby. Seeing that no one was paying attention to it, Little Zhezha curled up in a corner and closed its eyes. Not long after, it woke up again and stood up clumsily. Its two chubby little paws rested on the edge of the box, and its two little legs rubbed against the box as if it wanted to climb out and explore this unknown and mysterious world. But its legs were short, weren't they? It could not climb out no matter how hard it tried. Little Zhuzh suddenly became anxious. It kept whining and jumping around in the kennel. With its efforts, the cardboard box collapsed and it successfully climbed out. It began to walk around leisurely, shaking its butt. It sniffed here and there, and its eyes sparkled with curiosity. This was perhaps the most privileged dog in the world. It could walk around the president's office of Disheng Financial Group so freely. If it were anyone else's dog, they would have been kicked away by Mu Yazhe. But it was different. Yun Shusha had picked it up. Mu Yazhe had tolerated it. However, before going to the meeting, he had specifically told Minute Yu not to let the dog slip out. Mu Yazhe was a misophobe. His office was very clean, and not a speck of dust was allowed. Every day, the cleaning lady would focus on cleaning his office. But the puppy did not understand. It wandered around to its heart's content, scratching at the expensive leather sofa and gnawing at the corner of Mu Yazhe's solid wood desk, leaving behind a ghastly set of teeth marks. After a while, it ran to the expensive carpet and peed in satisfaction. Now that Mu Yazhe was not around, the huge office was its playground. When it was tired, it stretched out its legs and lay on the floor. However, after a few seconds, it stood up restlessly. Suddenly, it ran to the door and scratched at it eagerly, as if it wanted to go out. But who would care about it now? It seemed to be impatient as its two claws madly scratched the solid wooden door. However, seeing that no one was paying attention to it, it could no longer hold it in. It circled around on the spot, its nose twitching as it constantly made sniffing sounds. Finally, its small body quivered, and it arched its back. Its four limbs moved closer, and its butt trembled violently. Then, with a poof, it defecated a pile of smelly feces. This time, it finally felt comfortable. It spread its claws and walked around a few more times before lying down on the carpet and falling asleep. After the meeting ended, Mu Yazhe walked to the office while giving instructions to Minute Yu. Just as he pushed the door open and took a step forward, he felt that he had stepped on something soft. His face stiffened and his eyes turned cold. Minute Yu walked up to him and saw his back stiffened at the door. He was a little surprised. He raised his head and saw his tense and gloomy face. Puzzled, he asked, "President, what's wrong?" Mu Yazhe lifted his leather shoes stiffly. Under his feet was a puddle of poop that he had pampered. Chapter 951. Minute Yu's face turned green when he saw this. He wanted to laugh but did not dare to. Mu Yazhe was furious. He did not even need to think to know who did this. He stopped at the door and looked around. Soon, he saw the deep claw marks on the leather sofa. Little Zhuzh's claws were not flat. They were very sharp and had scratched several places. Mu Yazhe's face turned even darker. However, when he saw the bite marks on the corner of the desk, his face turned gloomy. Minute Yu was observing from the side. He was so scared that he did not even dare to breathe. Mu Yazhe suddenly turned his head slowly and looked at him coldly. He said in an unfriendly tone, "I remember that I told you not to let that stupid dog out." Minute Yu lowered his head and said guiltily, "Yes." "Then what's going on?" Mu Yazhe looked at the indescribable marks on his feet. His eyes were sharp and scary. "Give me an explanation, President." Stepping on a dick meant that it was lucky. However, he did not dare to say this out loud. But there was no other way. Humans had 3 natural urges, and so did dogs. It was so small. How could it hold it in? He immediately ordered the cleaning auntie to come over and clean it up. Then, he quickly replaced the desk that was bitten by little Zhuzh. Even the damaged sofa was replaced. Then, his assistant hurriedly bought a new pair of leather shoes. As for the shoes that had stepped on a dick, they naturally had to be thrown away. Damn stupid dog. Mu Yazhe stood in the office and looked around. However, he could not find any trace of that stupid dog. "Where's the dog?" he asked. Minute Yu immediately searched everywhere. Finally, he found little Zhuzh, who was trembling uneasily in the corner. He brought the puppy in front of Muyaja. Muyaja stared at it coldly. He wanted to flare up a few times, but he held it back. The puppy was so small that he even suspected that it would be on the verge of death if he slapped it. Suppressing his anger, he threw it into a corner and punished it. How could little Zhuzha stand still? It blinked its eyes innocently. When Muyaja glared at it, it shuddered violently and cried out in fear. "Don't shout!" Muyaja bellowed. Little Zhuzha was so scared that he kept quiet. His whole body trembled as he looked at it. His eyes were watery and he looked so innocent. "Can I shit in the office?" he questioned. Little Zhuzha tilted his head, as if he did not understand his words. "Answer." Under Muyaja's cold gaze, the little puppy was so scared that it let out an awoo sound, and its gaze became timid. "Face the wall and reflect on your mistakes." He held it and turned it around so that it faced the wall. Little Zhuzha timidly turned around and stared at him innocently, as if silently accusing him of being rude. For a moment, he actually saw the shadow of Yunshusha in its bewildered eyes. Many times, she had also stared at him with such eyes. He actually felt a little sorry for it. "I'll let you off this time. If there's a next time," his voice came to an abrupt end. His gaze was terrifying and cold. Little Zhuzha was almost paralyzed by his gaze. With a muffled groan, he stood up and threw it back into the kennel. Then, he returned to his desk to deal with his own matters. However, not long after, he felt that something was rubbing against his trousers. Chapter 952. He kicked it to the side impatiently. Even though he didn't use much strength, it still lost its balance and fell backwards, tumbling heavily. Little Zhuzha seemed unwilling to give up. It ran to his side and continued to pull at his trousers with its paws. Muyaja kicked it to the side again. "Go back to your nest." After being ignored, little Zhuzha began to howl. Each howl was louder than the previous one, and in the end, it actually howled at the top of its lungs. A woo tilde 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 woo tilde tilde tilde. Its howls sounded miserable, as if it was sad that he had ignored it. Muyaja finally lost his patience. He lifted it up and placed it on his lap. Thus, it stopped barking and found a place to curl up in the corner of his arms. Slowly, it subconsciously burrowed into his suit jacket. The office was air-conditioned. It obviously felt cold. Muyaja's face was so dark that it was unreasonable. What was wrong with him? Why did he promise that stupid woman to bring this stupid dog to work? He couldn't concentrate on his work for the whole day because this stupid dog always seemed to have a way to make him angry. Hence, when Minute pushed the door open and entered, he was surprised to see Muyaja sitting in front of his desk with a dark face. "Boss." Muyaja was obviously in an extremely gloomy mood. Minute walked over at once, only to see the ignorant puppy in Muyaja's arms, sleeping soundly with its 4 paws in the air. Oh God, did this dog want to go to heaven? One must know that Muyaja's obsession with cleanliness was known to all. How could he allow a dog to run wild on him? Not only did it fall asleep, but it also seemed to be in a dream. Its 4 claws twitched all of a sudden as it kicked and stained Muyaja's white and clean shirt with dust. Minute was stunned. "Boss, don't you hate dogs the most? If you know, then why don't you take this stupid dog away?" Muyaja glared at him. Minute immediately picked up the dog. "Change out of this suit for me." Minute immediately ordered his men to buy him a new suit to change into. "Your job this afternoon is to take good care of this dog." After Muyaja gave the order, he left the room. There was an important meeting in the afternoon. Minute carried the puppy with a smile on his face. On this day, Yunshusha received a call from Jiang Li. Over the phone, Jiang Li stammered as if she wanted to say something but didn't dare to. Yunshusha laughed and said, "Jiang Li, do you have something to say to me?" Jiang Li hummed softly, but did not say it immediately. Instead, she mulled over it a few times in her heart. Speaking of which, it was quite ironic. Before the class reunion, when her classmates did not know about Yunshusha's situation, they all looked down on Yunshusha. In fact, they even looked down on her. In university, Huang Lili fanned the flames and created rumors that Yunshusha was a mistress of a rich man outside of school. She said that she was a secret lover that could not be seen in public. Compared to these, there were even more unbearable words. Huang Lili even created rumors that Yun Shusha was a public transport that could be slept with as long as one paid money. She said that 30,000 yuan was enough to keep her for a month. She even warned the boys in school not to be fooled by Yun Shusha's appearance. She said that she looked pure and innocent, but what was the truth? She was very cheap. Chapter 953. Yun Shusha did not know about it, but Jiang Li did. During the period when Yun Shusha was suspended from school, the rumors about her in school were extremely unbearable. Later on, due to an accident, Yun Shusha gave birth to a child out of wedlock. However, it indirectly verified the rumors that Huang Lili had spread. Huang Lili also secretly said that Yun Shusha's child was an illegitimate child, a bastard. So what if it was a son? A bastard child who could not see the light of day would not be acknowledged by wealthy families. Furthermore, no one was willing to be friends with Yun Shusha. Those boys who had pursued Yun Shusha in the past all felt that such a girl was filthy. Some even felt ashamed of having liked Yun Shusha. At first, Jiang Li also believed that Yun Shusha was really a mistress of a rich man. However, unlike others, she was always polite to Yun Shusha. That was because she felt that Yun Shusha was quite pitiful. With such a pitiful heart, Jiang Li often helped her. Since things had turned out this way, Yun Shusha would probably not be able to get married in the future, right? Which man would be willing to marry an 18-year-old girl who gave birth to a child out of wedlock? Many of the female classmates in the class were quite gloating. They all felt that Yun Shusha was actually quite pitiful. Raising a child alone, she must have been very down and out. Hence, many of the female classmates were smug and even compared themselves to Yun Shusha. Seeing how the once famous school belle was now in such a sorry state, they could not help but feel an inexplicable sense of superiority. However, that class reunion overturned everyone's understanding. Yun Shusha actually had a boyfriend. And he was the CEO of Disheng Financial Group. Gosh, that was the Mu Group that could cause the stock market to tremble with a yawn. Naturally, they did not believe it and were skeptical. However, when Wang Chuanda appeared and treated Mu Yaja so respectfully, how could it be fake? After the class reunion, the Du family quickly suffered. She heard that because Du Jiayan and Huang Lili had offended Yun Shusha and said those unbearable things at the class reunion, the Muse had suppressed the Du family so badly that they were on the brink of bankruptcy in just a few days. Only then did these people truly believe it. At the same time, they were envious, jealous, and in awe of Yun Shusha. Later, after Du Jiayan begged Yun Shusha, the next day, the Du family's project slowly recovered. He was surprised and overjoyed, feeling extremely grateful to Yun Shusha. She really took the words he begged her to heart. However, Huang Lili's family underwent a drastic change. Huang Lili was originally from a poor family. Her hometown was a village in the city of Beijing. Father Huang used to be in the limelight. However, the Asian financial crisis happened. His business was destroyed and his factory closed down. In the end, he was heavily in debt and had no choice but to return to his hometown. Later, Huang Lili hooked up with Du Jiayan. Under the Du family's arrangement, Father Huang became the village secretary. Although it was not as glorious as before, it was still smooth sailing for him. However, recently, Father Huang was anonymously reported for abusing his position and embezzling more than 1 million yuan. Not only that, Father Huang even embezzled the government's poverty support fund. The total embezzlement amounted to several million yuan. The village in the city was a poverty-stricken county that was heavily supported by the capital. The annual support fund amounted to several million yuan. Father Huang's case was especially serious. According to the law, not only would all his assets be confiscated, he would also face a life sentence. Life sentence. Chapter 954. She did not even need to think to know who was behind this. Why did the incident suddenly come to light? Huang Lili didn't need to guess who the anonymous informant was. She already knew who it was. This time, she was thoroughly frightened. She rushed home in the middle of the night, but her father had already been taken away by the Disciplinary and Inspection Commission for investigation. Mother Huang's hair turned white overnight, and she fainted from crying several times. She suffered a stroke and was sent to the hospital. She was still in a coma and was still under observation. All of her family's assets were frozen. Huang Lili had no choice but to use the little savings she had to pay for her mother's medical expenses. Now, she was penniless. This was what it meant to be at the end of one's rope. Mother Huang still needed follow-up treatment, and the cost was high. If she was not treated in time, she would be in danger of becoming a vegetable. Huang Lili was so frightened that she did not know what to do. She called Du Jiayan for help, but he coldly rejected her. Huang Lili, you still have the cheek to call me? We've already broken up. Don't call me again to bother me. Because of you, the Du family suffered so much. Isn't that enough? Huang Lili begged softly. Jiayan, on account of our friendship, can you help me this time? You still have the cheek to talk about friendship with me? Her words made Du Jiayan furious. Because of you, the Du family almost went bankrupt. What about you? What did you do? Huang Lili, you're the one who broke up with me. Since you can't bear the hardships with me, why should I help you now that you're in trouble? You reap what you sow. If it weren't for your vanity and offending someone you shouldn't have, would you end up like this? The Du family has yet to recover and can't even protect itself. You should take care of yourself. With that, he hung up the phone. When Huang Lili tried calling him again, she was told that she could not get through. She had probably been blacklisted by him. The next day, the hospital sent another reminder. The money she had saved in the hospital was not enough to cover the medical expenses, and she had already owed several bills. At her wit's end, she naturally did not dare to look for Yun Shusha personally. Thus, she sought out Jiang Li, hoping that the latter could plead for mercy from Yun Shusha on her behalf on account of the fact that they were once classmates. She hoped that the latter would be merciful and not force the Huang family into a corner. Jiang Li rejected her at first. However, Huang Lili was exhausted from crying. She even said that if this went on, she would be too ashamed to continue living if her father and her mother's. Jiang Li's heart softened, and she agreed. However, after dialing Yun Shusha's number, she to speak. Shusha, have you heard about what happened to Huang Lili? What's the matter? I heard that Huang Lili's father was reported anonymously. It was said that he was corrupt and took bribes. The amount of money he received was several million. He has been taken away for investigation. If he is convicted, I'm afraid he will be sentenced to life imprisonment. Yun Shusha muttered to herself for a moment. Jiang Li continued. Her mother couldn't take the blow and suffered a stroke. She's still in the hospital now, but the family's funds have been frozen, so they can't pay for the medical expenses. If she's not treated in time, she'll become a vegetable. How tragic. Yun Shusha laughed softly. Jiang Li, what do you mean by telling me this? Chapter 955. Yun Shusha said casually, do you also think that I'm selfless enough to forgive someone who used unscrupulous means to slander me? Jiang Li said anxiously, Aya, Shusha, don't misunderstand. That's not what I meant. I just feel that Huang Lili is pitiful. Although she's in the wrong, isn't this punishment a little too severe? Punishment? Pitiful? Yun Shusha was so angry that she laughed. Jiang Li, are you muddle-headed? If her father wasn't corrupt, why would he be reported anonymously? Jiang Li was speechless. Yun Shusha laughed again and said, if her father was just and honest, why would he be afraid that others would take advantage of him? If her father hadn't brought this upon himself, her mother wouldn't have suffered such a blow and all these things wouldn't have happened. These are all their own sins. Don't tell me you're suspecting that I sent someone to report them anonymously and made up those baseless accusations to pin the blame on them. Jiang Li was also a little angry, but she didn't dare to say anything. She only said, Shusha, I'm just feeling sorry for Huang Lili. Don't be so harsh with your words. Don't hurt our friendship over such a small matter. Moreover, I didn't mean it that way. Don't overthink it. Jiang Li, people have to learn to put themselves in other people's shoes. If you have empathy and put yourself in my shoes, if you were slandered and hurt like this, would you forgive her? Jiang Li said, of course not. Huang Lili has gone too far. That's what you said. Moreover, I didn't harm her. This is all her family's own sins. She deserves to go to jail for taking bribes. The law is strict and fair. Since she did something wrong, she should be punished, right? Yoon Shusha had already made her stance clear. Jiang Li sighed and said, I'm sorry, Shusha. I may not be able to empathize with the hurt you have suffered, but I don't mean to ask you to forgive Huang Lily. I was only asked by her to plead on her behalf. Since you've made your stance clear, then this matter will end here. I won't mention it again. After that, Jiang Li apologized profusely and hung up the phone. Yoon Shusha frowned. Actually, every circle had its own rules of the game. Since he wanted to survive in this circle, he had to abide by the rules of the game. If they didn't follow the rules, they would definitely be eliminated. Lin Fengtian purposely filmed all her scenes with Ji Yuxingze. Normally, a youth movie like this would only take Liang 3 months to film. Since Yoon Shusha and Ji Yuxingze were in their best condition, their scenes were completed within 10 days. The production crew even held a celebratory banquet for them. Yoon Shusha and Ji Yuxingze took a selfie and posted it on the internet, announcing that they had finished filming their scenes. The fans of the original novel were excited and looked forward to the release of the movie. Yoon Shusha couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded after working on the set for more than 2 months. This was her first movie and the entire process was like a dream. She understood that the reason why she and Ji Yuxingze were filmed together was to take care of her. At the celebratory banquet, Lin Fengtian made a special feature of the behind-the-scenes photos and gave it to her. Chapter 956. Yoon Shusha was deeply grateful for this. Being able to work with an outstanding director like Lin Fengtian in her first movie was something she did not even dare to dream of. However, something unpleasant happened during the celebratory banquet. Yoon Shusha was arranged to sit at the same table as Yang Mi and Lu Jingtian. During the banquet, when Lu Jingtian stood up to make a toast, she accidentally spilled the red wine in her hand on her. This sudden attack caught her off guard. Yoon Shusha's body stiffened slightly as her gaze fell on her dress. The bright red wine spilled on her dress, causing it to bloom like a flower. Lu Jingtian covered her mouth in horror. Oh, no! Shusha, I didn't do it on purpose, Yoon Shusha sneered. I know you didn't do it on purpose. How could she say it out loud if she did it on purpose? Yoon Shusha did not even look at her as she wiped her dress with a wet towel and sighed helplessly. This dress was ruined. It was just a dress. If it got dirty, she could just throw it away. Hence, she got up and returned to the nanny van, only to find Lu Jingtian following closely behind her. She turned around warily and squinted her eyes. Why are you following me? Yoon Shusha, you seem to be very pleased with yourself. Lu Jingtian sneered. Her eyes were full of contempt and mockery. Yoon Shusha raised her brow slightly and sneered. I don't know what you mean. Lu Jingtian's eyes turned sharp as she shouted, You do. After a pause, she suddenly said aggressively, Do you think that you can be so arrogant just because Brother Mu is supporting you? Do you think that he truly loves you? He's only interested in you on a whim. Once this is over, do you think you can still be as doted on as you are today? Yoon Shusha impatiently interrupted her. Lu Jingtian, I'm tired of hearing such words from you. Song Enya had said such words before, too. That Missy and Lu Jingtian were close, so there was a high chance that the Missy had said something to her to disgust her. Lu Jingtian was annoyed at being interrupted, but she then sneered. You're the female lead in this movie. Once it's released, your fame will surely soar. You won't be far from becoming famous overnight. Still, I really look down on you. If not for Brother Mu, you wouldn't be where you are today. Yoon Shusha blandly replied, I'm famous because of my own capabilities. Lu Jingtian sneered as if she had just heard a joke. TSK. What a nice thing to say. If Brother Mu hadn't given you so many resources, would you have become so famous? Dream on. Why? Are you that envious of me? Yoon Shusha chuckled, unable to hide the teasing in her eyes. Of course. Lu Jingtian's face was contorted out of shape. How? Lu Jingtian flew into a rage out of humiliation after being exposed by her. What's there to be envious of a B*TCH who relied on the unspoken rules to get to where she is? Yoon Shusha was unfazed and only said faintly, You're better than someone with mediocre acting skills and poor script skills. You can't even recite a complete line. If not for your background, Director Lin would have fired you long ago. Chapter 957. You're spouting nonsense. There's no such thing. Do you have any acting skills? It's all because you have that face that fits the role of the character in the script. Lu Jingtian did not realize how sour her words were. Yun Shusha chuckled. There's a saying, beauty and luck are also a form of strength. After a pause, she smiled sweetly. If you're capable, why don't you look prettier than me? Lu Jingtian was stunned for a moment before she gritted her teeth. Yun Shusha enjoyed the sight of her livid face and smiled. Besides, are you in a position to say that I don't have any acting skills? In terms of strength, I can't be compared to you. Lu Jingtian was exasperated. What kind of power do you have? Do you have the power to be taken advantage of? That's right. Beauty is a form of strength, so are you using your beauty to seduce Brother Mu? Yun Shusha, I think you're the reincarnation of a vixen who specializes in seducing men. Yun Shusha cast her a sidelong glance. Indeed, summer insects could not talk about ice. Some people were so jealous that they could not be reasoned with. She coldly said, even without Mu Yaja, I'll still use my strength to prove myself. Lu Jingtian hooted, if you're capable, don't rely on him. Yun Shusha could not be bothered with her as she maintained a cold face. Seeing her indifference, Lu Jingtian gritted her teeth. Suddenly, she thought of something and smiled contemptuously. Actually, I think you're quite pitiful. Yun Shusha did not want to bother with her, though, so why waste her breath on her? With this thought in mind, she turned around, only to hear her say from behind, do you know? Brother Mu will be holding a press conference soon to announce his marriage. Yun Shusha's footsteps paused. Her body stiffened slightly, but she did not turn around. She furrowed her brows slightly. Lu Jingtian took a few steps toward her from behind and spoke in a voice full of arrogance. I heard this from my dad, too. I heard that Brother Mu is holding a press conference to announce his marriage with Mu Wanru. He. In other words, he and Mu Wanru were about to get married. If he really loved you, would he marry another woman? You're just a canary that he's keeping in a cage. He'll play with you when he's happy, and when he's tired of you, it's nothing more than that. That's why I feel sorry for you. You see him as your entire world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Do you really think he cares about you that much? Lu Jingtian was also in love with Mu Yaja, but to her, Mu Yaja was undoubtedly high and mighty. She knew that Mu Yaja and her were like heaven and earth. In her heart, he was like a god. But why was Yun Shusha able to occupy his heart? Receive all of his love? What right did Yun Shusha have what she couldn't have? Yun Shusha was silent for a long time. Mu Yaja is going to hold a press conference to announce his marriage? Why didn't he mention this to me? She did not believe that Mu Yaja would announce his marriage with Mu Wanru at a press conference, but if he had other intentions, he should explain it to me clearly, should he not? Yun Shusha suddenly clutched the corner of her shirt as a conflicted look flashed across her eyes. You see him as your entire world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Was that so? Was that really the case? On the island in the middle of the lake, he had created a mysterious romance for her. In her impression, a man like him had never put in so much effort for anyone. Chapter 958. He had also made a vow to dote on her legitimately. Every time they were intimate, she would look at him with a doting gaze that couldn't be faked. Could it be that those were all lies? Did he do all this for her to deceive her feelings? No way, right? Words could deceive the heart. However, the emotions in his eyes couldn't be deceived no matter what. She regarded him as her whole world. He, on the other hand, used the whole world to protect her. Why should she listen to someone else's one-sided statement and doubt him, then? Yun Shusha turned around expressionlessly and sneered when she saw the smug look on the other's face. Lu Jingtian was taken aback when she saw her laughing instead of being angry. You're really thick-skinned. How can you be so cheap and still laugh shamelessly? Yun Shusha's eyes were full of contempt as she coldly said, Lu Jingtian, you're the pitiful one, aren't you? What? Do you know how Mu Yaja treats me? Do you know how he feels about me? Lu Jingtian choked hard. Yun Shusha's lips curled into a smile that she found extremely dazzling. Like is different from love. Love is unconditional trust, so I believe him. As for you, who are you? What right do you have to sow discord here? Lu Jingtian laughed in anger. Sow discord? Ha. Ha ha. You're really pitiful. It seems that you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. I'm really looking forward to the day you're abandoned. You must be in a sorry state. All right, then. Let's wait and see, Yun Shusha said nonchalantly. Lu Jingtian's smile disappeared at her words, and she became angry out of humiliation. Yun Shusha, however, merely smiled and turned to leave. She clenched her fists tightly, feeling a nameless fire in her heart. She was so angry that she lost her rationality. She actually took a few steps forward and grabbed Yun Shusha's arm. You're not allowed to leave. Did I say you could leave? I'm not done yet. She originally wanted to humiliate her, but she ended up being humiliated instead. She was filled with grievances and had nowhere to vent them. Yun Shusha was pulled hard by her and fell to the ground. Lu Jingtian cursed coldly. She flipped over and straddled the woman before slapping her face a few times like a shrew. I'll kill you, you vixen. Born with a seductive face, she seduced men everywhere. I don't know what kind of ability you have, or what kind of charm you have. Not only is Brother Xingzi so smitten by you, even Brother Mu has fallen for your seduction. I'll beat you to death, you bitch. I'll kill you. How could Yun Shusha be willing to submit obediently? How could she be the kind to be slaughtered? Did she not know how to retaliate when Lu Jingtian hit her? Hence, she grabbed Lu Jingtian's arm with all her strength. Perhaps, she had been humiliated to the extreme, but she somehow managed to push the other away with all her strength. She stood up, and Lu Jingtian was about to pounce on her again. Yun Shusha nimbly dodged, and the latter fell to the ground, caught off guard. Yun Shusha then turned around and pinned her down, strangling her neck. Ah! How dare you strangle me? Lu Jingtian cursed. Her usual ladylike demeanor in the production team was gone, and she was like a crazy shrew. Chapter 959. Yun Shusha returned all the slaps she had received from her earlier and gave her a few hard slaps. If you like him, compete with him openly. I despise people like you the most for resorting to such despicable means. With that, Yun Shusha gave her a few more slaps without hesitation. Lu Jingtian's legs kicked wildly, but Yun Shusha suddenly choked her with a little force. Don't move. Yun Shusha threatened angrily. Lu Jingtian's face flushed red, but she still glared at her defiantly. However, when she felt a suffocating sensation on her neck, she widened her eyes in disbelief. This woman is really using all her strength to choke me. I can't breathe. Lu Jingtian's hands clutched her wrists tightly, her sharp nails leaving deep bloody marks on the back of her hands. Yun Shusha, on the other hand, did not seem to be afraid of pain or the woman's threatening gestures. Seeing that the latter was still cursing and swearing, she increased the strength in her hands. Lu Jingtian felt suffocated and could no longer utter a word. It was as if she would faint in the next second. Yun Shusha saw that her face was flushed red, as if blood was about to drip out, and loosened her grip slightly. She had only pinched her to scare her. She wanted her to know that she was not to be trifled with even if she was usually docile. Lu Jingtian, I'm warning you, I won't attack unless I'm attacked, but if someone attacks me, I won't tolerate it to the end, either. With that, Yun Shusha stood up, glared at her coldly, and walked away swiftly. Lu Jingtian got up from the ground, feeling aggrieved and afraid. Tears streamed down her face and wet her clothes. Yun Shusha's gaze earlier was too scary. Now that she thought about it carefully, she was both shocked and frightened. Yun Shusha was really bold. How dare she strangle her? She had never been hit by anyone at this age. Even when she made a mistake when she was young, her parents could not bear to hit her. This Yun Shusha was the first person who dared to lay a hand on her. At the thought of this, she was overwhelmed with grievances. She originally wanted to go back to the celebration party, but now she was angered by Yun Shusha. Her dress was dirty, and she was in a sorry state. Besides, she had lost her appetite, so she went straight to the lounge, picked up her phone, and called her niece. The moment the call got through, she burst into tears. Song Enya was startled by her cries and hurriedly inquired about what had happened. The two of them were best friends from junior high school to university, and their relationship was very close. Lu Jingtian recounted what had happened to her niece with exaggerated details. She could not stop complaining. "Enya, she actually hit me and even pinched me. You didn't see how overboard she was. She really pinched me hard." Song Enya consoled her for a while, only to hear the other lashing out indignantly. "Enya, how could there be such a disgusting woman in this world? This woman is really disgusting. What right does she have to shout at me? She even said that we'll wait and see. I'm really looking forward to seeing her fall to rock bottom. I really want to see how down and out Brother Mu is when he abandons her." "Jingtian, don't be sad. Did she really pinch you?" Song Enya was still in disbelief. Chapter 960. Song Enya was furious. Yun Shusha was really arrogant to dare offend them. Last time, it was her, and this time, it was Lu Jingtian. How could she be so arrogant? Hence, she said to Lu Jingtian, "Jingtian, don't be sad. Don't worry, I'll definitely avenge you." "Okay." Lu Jingtian asked with teary eyes, "How do you plan to take revenge?" "Hee. Just listen to my arrangements when the time comes." Back home, Yun Shusha went to the bathroom to take a shower. Her body was stained with mud from the scuffle with Lu Jingtian earlier. She washed her body carefully and changed into a white dress. Standing in front of the mirror, she lowered her head to look at her arm. The bloody scratches caused by Lu Jingtian were gradually fading, and there was a scratch on the back of her hand from the latter's nails. The wound was very shallow. It was just a layer of skin, so there was no need to put a bandage on it. After dinner, Yo-Yo and Xiaochen went to the courtyard to play badminton. The two little guys had been sticking together recently. Whether it was sleeping or doing homework, Xiaochen liked to stick to Yo-Yo. As for Yo-Yo, although she despised Xiaochen's stupidity on the surface, she gradually opened her heart to Xiaochen and became more cheerful. Yun Shusha sat on the sofa, recalling Lu Jingtian's words in her mind. She felt inexplicably vexed. When Mu Yaja returned from the office, he opened the door and saw her alone on the sofa. The lights in the living room were off, and she was leaning against the corner of the sofa quietly. It seemed that she had fallen asleep. He walked to her side and turned on the lights, which woke her up. She opened her eyes, still in a daze. Her eyes were half open, and she seemed to be in a daze. She looked very innocent. However, because of her pair of seductive peach blossom eyes, she looked lazy and seductive. Seeing that he had returned, she immediately sat up and raised her head to look at him. With a faint smile, she said in a hoarse voice, "You're back." He glanced at the table and asked, "Have you eaten?" "Yes, I have." She suddenly added, "Yo-Yo went to play badminton with Xiao Chen." As she spoke, she looked behind him. "Hey, where's the dog?" Mu Yaja said, "In the courtyard, playing with two little guys." "Oh." He sat down on the sofa and saw that her hair was slightly messy, so he reached out and tucked a few strands of her hair behind her ear. His touch quickly scalded the tips of her ears. They were red, as if she was shy. Yun Shusha suddenly remembered what had happened today. She pursed her lips and wanted to ask something. She tentatively opened her mouth but didn't know where to start. Mu Yaja saw the strange expression on her face. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. "What's wrong? Why do you look so pale?" Today, the production team held a celebration party. Yun Shusha looked at him and opened her mouth. She wanted to say something but stopped herself. In the end, she didn't say anything. She also didn't ask about the media conference. Since she had chosen to believe him, she would believe him unconditionally until the end. Although she didn't understand the purpose of his media conference, she didn't believe that he would announce his marriage with Mu Wonru. Although she didn't understand why he kept her in the dark, she believed that he had his reasons for doing so. Chapter 961. Thus, she looked up and smiled. "Let's go for a walk." There was a very beautiful river in Beijing. At night, the riverside would be lit up with warm neon lights. It was very beautiful. Standing by the riverside and leaning against the railing, one could see the tallest building in Beijing. It was the symbol of Beijing, a colorful television tower. Both of them were extremely busy and rarely had time to take a leisurely stroll together. Mu Yaja had pushed off many things today, so he finally had some free time. The neon lights of the night market. Yun Shusha held onto Mu Yaja's arm as they walked. She saw many young couples sitting on the benches by the riverside, snuggling together and whispering sweet nothings. It was very romantic. It suddenly occurred to her that she and he seemed to have had very few serious engagements. Thus, she tugged at Mu Yaja's sleeve and said with a smile, "Mu Yaja, go on a date with me." Upon hearing this, Mu Yaja followed her line of sight and smiled faintly. "We're already an old married couple, yet you still want to learn how to date like a youngster?" Yun Shusha's face darkened, and she muttered unhappily, "We're not old. I'm only 24. I'm not old yet. Also, who's an old married couple with you? We've been together for so long, and we've never gone on a date like other couples." "All right then. How do you want to go on a date?" Yun Shusha was unhappy. "Why does it seem like I'm forcing you?" Mu Yaja saw her aggrieved face and was amused. He crossed his arms and asked, "Then, Miss Yun Shusha, are you willing to go on a date with me?" Yun Shusha couldn't help but be amused. However, she restrained her smile and said reservedly, "I'll reluctantly agree." She couldn't help but think how blissful it was for them to be able to go on a date like a normal couple. If at this time, the two of them could sit side by side on a bench by the river and admire the beautiful night scenery, she would be very satisfied. Yun Shusha was about to pull Mu Yaja over to the bench, but she suddenly noticed that this guy was looking at a couple not far away with a thoughtful expression. She followed his line of sight and saw a couple hugging and kissing each other intimately. The woman's clothes were half removed to her shoulders, revealing her sexy spaghetti strap, while the man's hands were unscrupulously reaching into the woman's clothes, caressing her with abandon. The two of them acted intimately as if no one else was around, occasionally letting out suppressed gasps. The two of them were so engrossed in their kiss that they didn't seem to mind the scrutiny of the passers-by. The battle was getting more and more intense. Could it be that the two of them were going to put on a show of passion on the streets? So explosive. Yun Shusha blushed and her heart raced as she watched. She quickly turned her head away and didn't look anymore. Mu Yaja turned his face. His eyes were calm as he sized up Yun Shusha's awkward expression. His lips curled into a sinister smile as he whispered in her ear, "I heard that this method makes it easier for people to feel sweet passion. Why don't we give it a try?" Yun Shusha almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face burned even hotter. "You. What are you trying to do? Isn't it good to take advantage of the night to do some exercise that's good for the body and mind? Get lost." Yun Shusha turned her head and casually pointed at a puff factory not far away. She changed the topic. "Mu Yaja, I want to eat puffs." Chapter 962. Stupid Woman. She really couldn't take a joke. Mu Yaja held her hand and walked into the cozy little shop. When they walked in, they saw a child crouching excitedly in front of the bar counter, his watery eyes shining with anticipation. A short-haired woman stood by the side and looked helplessly at the child's silly look. She couldn't help but pinch his cheeks. Yun Shusha looked at him and couldn't help but think of Yo-Yo when he was 2 or 3 years old. Yo-Yo especially liked desserts. Sometimes, when Yun Shusha got off work early, she would take him to the dessert shop. The little guy was like that too. He would tiptoe in front of the display cabinet and look greedily at the desserts displayed in the refrigerator. But he wouldn't do that now. Yun Shusha ordered a set of matcha-flavored puffs and sat quietly at the bar counter with Mu Yaja. The shop owner placed a cream puff on the bar counter. The child couldn't wait to grab a cream puff with each hand and greedily put it into his mouth. The shop owner was tickled by his cute appearance and laughed. "Your child is so cute." The woman frowned and said mildly, "How about I give the cute puff to you? This little guy is very naughty." Startled, Yun Shusha turned to look at the woman with a smile. However, the woman patted the child's head lazily and said, "This little guy is very troublesome." With that said, the woman rubbed the child's fine hair on his forehead and complained half-jokingly, "Don't be fooled by how obedient he looks now. When he's naughty, it's really a headache." "Children, especially boys, are all naughty," the shop owner said with a smile. However, Mu Yaja lazily put his arm around Yun Shusha's shoulder and said slowly, "When my son was your age, he was also very naughty." Yun Shusha was slightly surprised. She didn't expect Mu Yaja to be like a normal person and chat with others. It felt a little strange. Perhaps the image of Mu Yaja in front of her had always been that of a high and mighty elite of the empire, the ruler of a storm of blood, like a god. Unexpectedly, he had such a normal side to him. Yun Shusha blushed a little. What? Mu Yaja was a normal person. Haha, really? The woman was slightly surprised. Handsome, how old are you? You don't look like someone who has a child. 28. Wow, so young. Is this your lover? Mu Yaja lowered his head and glanced at Yun Shusha, who was leaning against him. Then, he smiled gently and his eyes were filled with affection. Yes. She is my wife. Yun Shusha's face turned even redder. She buried her face shyly. She is my wife. This sentence really made her blush and her heart beat faster. Immediately, a warm current flowed into her heart. For the first time in her life, she felt such an unfamiliar warmth. The woman walked out of the shop with the child. Mu Yaja stared at the woman's back until they disappeared into the night. Then, he slowly retracted his gaze. Yun Shusha waved the bag of puffs in front of his eyes and asked puzzledly, "Mu Yaja, what's wrong with you?" Mu Yaja came back to his senses and smiled as he shook his head and said, "Nothing. I just feel a little envious." Yun Shusha didn't understand the meaning of his words for a moment. "Sometimes, I really envy such an ordinary and simple family," Mu Yaja said sincerely. Chapter 963. Yun Shusha was stunned. It was rare to hear such sentimental words from him. For a moment, she couldn't help but feel curious. Yun Shusha stared at him with interest. Mu Yaja cast a sidelong glance at her. "What are you looking at? Let's go." "Wait." Yun Shusha grabbed his hand, picked up the phone, and pulled him to her side. She pressed her face against his cheek, raised the phone, and turned on the camera. "Come, smile. What do you want to do?" Yun Shusha said, "Smile. We haven't taken a photo together yet." Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. "Don't put on such a serious expression, it's very scary. Smile for me." Mu Yaja looked at the camera blankly and suddenly revealed a cold smile. Click. Yun Shusha took a photo and looked at it. She raised her eyebrows and said unhappily, "Mu Yaja, your smile is so evil." Evil? Yun Shusha didn't care anymore. She took a few photos and sent them to her private channel happily. "What do you think of the couple's faces? Someone's smile is so evil." She looked up and asked, "Mu Yaja, do you have a Weibo account?" "I didn't apply for one." "Why didn't you apply for one? You're too outdated." Yun Shusha couldn't help but criticize. Mu Yaja laughed. "Not interested. Apply for one. I'll get it certified for you." "I don't want to." "Why not?" "It's a little troublesome." "Then I'll get it for you." Mu Yaja was helpless. "Weibo is boring. I don't understand what's so fun about it. Mr. Mu Yaja, your life is so boring." As she spoke, Yun Shusha took out a small puffball and brought it to his lips. She said with a smile, "Come, try this shop's puff. It's delicious." Mu Yaja frowned slightly as he looked at the bubble ball. His face was full of unwillingness, but he didn't open his mouth. He didn't have a sweet tooth and had never eaten puffs before. Yun Shusha saw the look of disgust on his face and complained, "Why do you have such an expression? I'm feeding you puffs, not arsenic. Why do you look like I'm poisoning you?" Mu Yaja said, "I don't like it." "Then have a taste. It's very delicious. Come, ah." She stuffed it into his mouth as she spoke. Mu Yaja was forced to take a bite. In an instant, the rich cream filled his mouth. He didn't like the taste. He couldn't swallow or spit it out. He frowned deeply. Yun Shusha saw his face turn green and her eyes widened in shock. She asked in confusion, "Hey, what's wrong with you? Are you okay?" Mu Yaja opened his mouth and took a bite. The cream filled his mouth. He opened his eyes in shock. He clearly saw that the ball was round, but he didn't expect it to be wrapped in cream. He didn't like sweet things, especially cream. He would feel nauseous when he ate it. Seeing his face turn green, Yoon Shusha was shocked. She quickly asked, "What's wrong? Does it taste bad?" Mu Yaja held it in and didn't spit it out. After swallowing it, he suddenly felt sick of the taste in his stomach. Yoon Shusha saw that his expression was too cute and suddenly smiled mischievously. She made another puffball and waved it in front of him. Then, she took a bite in front of him. Chapter 964. It was rare for Yoon Shusha to see such an expression on his face. She found it extremely interesting and swallowed a few more puffs. Her mouth was full and cream stained her lips. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows and turned his head away from her. Yoon Shusha burst out laughing and said, "So you don't like cream?" Mu Yaja said disdainfully, "It's the way you eat that's too disgusting." Yoon Shusha fell silent. Seeing that he had walked ahead, she quickly followed behind him and offered him the puffs in a fawning manner. She raised her brows and asked, "Hey, I still have a few more puffs here. Aren't you going to eat them?" Mu Yaja turned his head away. "Nope." Yoon Shusha sighed and stood unhappily at the same spot. All right. It was fine if he didn't like it. Why did he have to show such an expression? It was as though he despised the food she was eating. She lowered her head and pouted her lips resentfully. She picked up the last puffball and bit it. Before she could swallow it, her chin was lifted up by a hand. Yoon Shusha looked up and saw Mu Yaja's handsome face suddenly magnified. His long and narrow eyes were curled up devilishly and his thin lips were slightly parted. Right after that, he gently bit the other half of the puff she was biting. His lips gently pressed against hers and cream flowed out. He curled his lips slightly and the tip of his tongue hooked the cream at the corner of her lips and licked it. The kiss was so gentle that Yoon Shusha was so shocked that her face and ears turned red. She was stunned on the spot and couldn't say a word for a long time. Mu Yaja bit off half of the puff and looked up. There was a smug smile at the corner of his lips as though he hadn't had enough yet. The tip of his tongue hooked the cream on his lips and he said casually, "It tastes pretty good." She didn't know if he was talking about the puffs or if he was referring to something else with his teasing tone. Yoon Shusha pursed her lips. Her eyes were filled with shame and anger. She said coquettishly, "You," before she could finish speaking, her hand was gently held by him. Mu Yaja lowered his head to look at her and asked, "Have you enjoyed yourself?" "Ah. What?" "First date." Mu Yaja smiled and rubbed her hair. "It's already so late. Can we go back now?" Yoon Shusha originally wanted to nod, but when she thought that she would have to sleep after going back, she was a little unwilling, so she said, "Let's wait a little longer. It's still early." Mu Yaja glanced at her coldly. He reached out and handed her his watch. "What time is it now?" he asked with a frown. Yoon Shusha glanced at it and answered obediently, "It's 11 o'clock. It's already so late. I have to go back to the company." Thinking of the mountain of cases in the company, Mu Yaja felt a headache coming on. Upon hearing that he was going back to the company, the smile on Yoon Shusha's face suddenly froze. "Mu Yaja, can you not go to the company?" She needed him. She was already used to him. She was used to the sense of security in his arms when she opened her eyes every day. She was also used to the fresh fragrance of his hair on the pillow. She couldn't bear to part with him. Mu Yaja held her chin and pressed the tip of his nose against hers. "What? You can't bear to part with me? I want you to accompany me." Yoon Shusha stammered a few words. Mu Yaja looked at her and his eyes changed slightly. However, she wrapped her arms around his waist. "I want you to accompany me. Don't go to the company. Stay at home with me tonight, okay?" "Okay, let's go home." Mu Yaja smiled and pulled her wrist to the car parked by the roadside. "Be good. Go back and rest early." Chapter 965. The indulgence in his words made her feel a tinge of sweetness. Holding her hand like this, with such a tall man walking in front of her and holding her hand tightly, she didn't know why, but there was a trace of satisfaction in her heart that even she couldn't detect. That night, she pushed aside the company's affairs. He did not stay up late and slept with her early. In the dark, Yoon Shusha hugged his waist tightly and rested her head on his chest to listen to his strong heartbeat. Thump, 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 just listening to his heartbeat made her feel at ease. Yoon Shusha could not help hugging him tighter. However, just as she was about to fall asleep, Lu Jingtian's mocking laughter rang in her mind again. You're just a canary in his cage. He'll play with you when he's happy, but when he's tired of you, that's all there is to it. That's why I think you're quite pitiful. You see him as your whole world, but he only sees you as a plaything. Do you really think he cares about you that much? Her voice was so real and ear-piercing that it seemed to be ringing in her ears. Yoon Shusha was suddenly jolted awake by the words that suddenly flashed in her mind. Even though she was well aware that Lu Jingtian's words were only meant to provoke her, she still felt a little uneasy. Women were always insecure. In fact, she was also an extremely insecure person. Some were easily swayed by personal gains and losses. This was especially so when her man was such a high and mighty figure who could call the wind and summon the rain, a dragon among men. There were naturally many women who coveted him. Would he really be faithful to her, though? Yoon Shusha raised her head and looked at the man. At this moment, in the dark, his eyes were closed. The darkness seemed to give him something even more charming. Exquisite facial features, deep brows, and handsome silhouette. Especially those long and narrow eyes. Even if his eyes were closed, they still exuded an insufferably arrogant aura of looking down on all living things. He was a man who was as arrogant as a god. Even though he was right by her side, she still felt that it was a little unreal. She suddenly leaned closer to him and planted a kiss on his thin lips. The taste of kissing him was so wonderful that she couldn't help but move her lips for a long time. She covered his warm lips with the tip of her tongue and gently pried open the gap between his lips before sliding in. The man suddenly opened his eyes and cast a sidelong glance at her. Yoon Shusha immediately raised her head. Seeing that he had woken up, her face blushed and she shyly pursed her lips. You didn't sleep." She looked embarrassed and laughed dryly. This was the first time she took the initiative to kiss him, and he actually bumped into her. Thus, she felt a little embarrassed. In fact, he had already fallen asleep. However, he had always been a light sleeper and would wake up at the slightest movement. When he opened his eyes, she took the initiative to kiss him. For a moment, he was a little surprised. He had never seen her so proactive before. "What? Aren't you going to continue?" His voice was hoarse, revealing a hint of suppressed gloominess. With that, he flipped over and pressed her under his body. Using the incomplete kiss from before, he kissed her deeply on the lips. He suddenly sank into her. Only when they had enjoyed themselves to their heart's content did they stop. Before he fell asleep, he hugged her. The woman in his arms was already exhausted, and her body was unbelievably limp after their lovemaking. The two fell asleep in each other's arms. Chapter 966. Early in the morning, the sky was still slightly bright. Yoon Shusha was woken up by the movement beside her. By the time she woke up, Mu Yaja was already dressed in a suit and leather shoes. This man always recovered his energy at lightning speed. She was still so tired, but he was already full of energy. She was a little envious of him. Seeing that she had opened her eyes, he sat by the bed and gently caressed her cheek. "Why are you awake? Sleep a little more." Yoon Shusha raised her hand and covered the back of his hand. "Are you going to the office?" Mu Yaja planted a kiss on her forehead. "Yes. You continue sleeping. I'm leaving." With that, he got up and prepared to leave. Yoon Shusha suddenly sat up and called out to him. "Mu Yaja." The man turned around. "Ah." She bit her lower lip and suddenly asked, "Will you be back today?" Her face was filled with anticipation. Mu Yaja glanced at her and then said in a deep voice, "I'll be back early." After saying that, he closed the door and left. Yoon Shusha lay back on the bed and closed her eyes for a while before getting up to prepare breakfast. She then personally sent the two little lads to school. In the afternoon, Yoon Shusha brought the two little lads home. The weather was hot, so Xiao Chen pestered Yo-Yo to go out to buy ice cream. Although Yo-Yo was unwilling, she could not resist his pestering and went out with him. Not long after, there was a knock on the door. Yoon Shusha felt strange. Did the two little guys forget to bring money? Thus, she hurriedly opened the door. Just as she opened the door, a familiar face came into view. Song Enya. She was startled to see Lu Jingtian standing beside her niece and an unfamiliar man beside her. Yun Shusha, it turns out that Brother Mu is hiding you in his golden house and hiding you here. She then kicked the door wide open and walked in with Lu Jingtian. Yun Shusha took a few steps back. Her face turned cold. These two people came in a menacing manner. Their faces were unfriendly. It was obvious that they were here for revenge. With a ferocious look in her eyes, Song Enya grabbed her arm the moment she walked in. Her grip was so strong that it almost left a red mark on her wrist. It was as if she could not wait to break her bones. Yun Shusha struggled, but with a look from the Missy, Lu Jingtian stepped forward and grabbed her other arm. This time, Yun Shusha was completely immobilized. Brother, come quickly. It's this B***tch. It's her. She hit me last time, and she hit Jingtian yesterday. She shamelessly seduced Brother Mu and bullied me. It's her. Come in and take a good look at this bitch's face. Song Enya called toward the door. Following that, Song Yunchi strode in. The tall figure stood in front of her and looked down at her with a frosty expression. Mu Yaja rushed home and gave Song Enya a slap. Yun Shusha looked at the man in front of her. The man in front of her was tall and lean, but his aristocratic aura was there. One look and she could tell that he was rich and respectable. He exuded a neat and experienced aura. With just one look, she could tell that this man was from the military. He had a steel-like military aura. Song Yunchi was still young, but he was already a captain in the capital's military. He looked at Yun Shusha and sized her up. His eyes were as sharp as an eagle's beak. Are you the one who bullied my sister? His tone was arrogant and cold. Bully. Chapter 967. What are you doing? What do you think? Song Enya was the first to give her a tight slap. This slap was not careless at all. It directly slapped Yun Shusha's face to the side, and a red handprint quickly appeared on her cheek. Yun Shusha staggered a few steps backward. Her hair was disheveled from the slap, and she looked extremely disheveled. She covered her face, feeling a burning pain on it. She thought to herself, this Song Enya is probably relying on the fact that she has the advantage in numbers to be so overbearing. It's as if she can't wait to slap my face. Her ears, which had just recovered, immediately buzzed. What are you all doing? Yun Shusha raised her head and shouted. Her eyes immediately emitted a cold glint as she glared fiercely at Song Enya. Lu Jingtian was immediately intimidated by her murderous glare. She did not know if she was pretending or not, but she pursed her lips and stomped her feet as she said to Song Yunchi, Brother Yunchi, look. This woman's eyes look as if she can't wait to skin us alive. She's so fierce. Song Yunchi glared at her and then said coldly, Enya, Jingtian, don't be afraid. If this woman dares to do anything to you, I'm still here. Me. This B***tch. I'm afraid of dirtying my hands by slapping her. Lu Jingtian snorted. Even though she said that, she gathered all her strength and slapped her in the next second. Yun Shusha sneered and said angrily, you guys are really capable. 3 people bullying 1 person? What is this? Are you bullying me with numbers? Song Enya was like a spoiled little princess at this moment, looking down at her condescendingly as if she were looking at a lowly commoner. What a fierce mouth. Yun Shusha, let me tell you, no one has ever hit me in my life. You, on the other hand, are the first to hit me. Who do you think you are? How dare you try to bully me? Ha! You're just a commoner. Do you think you can do whatever you want just because Brother Mu dotes on you? Do you know who I am? How dare you hit me? Do you believe that I can chop off your cheap hand and no one will say anything? Yun Shusha was so infuriated that she burst into laughter when she heard that. Song Enya was too arrogant. How dare she threaten to chop off her hand? Is there no law? Are you trying to use your power to oppress others in broad daylight? Law? Song Enya laughed as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. She then said coldly, Yun Shusha, my words are the law now. If you obediently kowtow and apologize to me now, I can consider whether to let you go and not pursue this matter. Apologize? Kowtow? Yun Shusha couldn't take it anymore. Her lips curled into a mocking smile. Why should I kowtow and apologize to you? What did I do wrong? Stubborn bitch, I think you won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Don't think that you don't know how high the sky is and how deep the earth is just because Brother Mu dotes on you. Enya is from the Song family. Haven't you heard of the capital Song family? Ha! Even if you're superficial and ignorant, you should know who the current mayor of the capital is. You've offended Enya. This isn't something that can be overturned with just a few words of apology. As she spoke, she pushed Yun Shusha to the ground and started fighting with her. Chapter 968. The Songs. So what if they're from the Song family? Do they think they can trample and humiliate people's dignity just because they have a bit of family background? Yun Shusha grabbed Lu Jingtian's hand and, with a tug, pulled her to the ground. She then flipped her body over and pinned her on top of her, returning the slaps she had given her earlier. Lu Jingtian struggled violently, and Song Enya pounced on Yun Shusha to wrestle with her. When women fought, it was nothing more than pulling hair and slapping faces. Song Enya and Lu Jingtian used such despicable methods to the extreme. Lu Jingtian, in particular, grabbed Yun Shusha's hair and refused to let go. Song Enya gave Yun Shusha a few more slaps. In the midst of the fight, Yun Shusha's lips had a deep cut, and blood was seeping out. Yun Shusha felt a metallic taste flowing into her mouth. When she noticed that the corner of her lips had been cut, a cold glint flashed across her eyes. Song Enya was so anxious that she did not pay attention to her strength and pinched and hit Yun Shusha. At this moment, they had completely lost their usual elegant demeanor. They were ruthless and could not wait to tear Yun Shusha's annoying face apart. For a moment, Lu Jingtian and Song Enya had the upper hand by working together. However, what was the saying? Even a rabbit would bite when cornered. For some reason, Yun Shusha was forced to lose her rationality. She did not know where she got her strength from, but even Song Enya and Lu Jingtian could not hold her back. Seeing that the situation had gone out of control, Song Yunshi could only watch helplessly as Yun Shusha slapped Song Enya's face. She could not stand it anymore. She stepped forward and pushed Lu Jingtian and Song Enya away. Then, she grabbed Yun Shusha's hands with one hand and dragged her to the center of the living room. Yun Shusha felt the pain of her wrist being dislocated. Then, she was thrown to the ground. Her back collided with the cold tiles, and the pain made her suck in a breath of cold air. Song Yunshi's anger rose from her heart. He had always doted on Enya as she grew up, and he had never once let her get hurt. His beloved sister was being bullied by this woman. For a moment, Song Yunshi couldn't care less about his so-called gentlemanly demeanor. He viciously grabbed her neck, his eyes bloodshot. "Brother, hit her hard. Beat her to death." Song Enya covered her face, which was stinging from Yun Shusha's slap earlier, and hooted with a ferocious look. At this moment, the footsteps of the two little munchkins could be heard from outside the door. Yun Tianyu saw that the door was wide open and immediately heard some discordant sounds. His heart skipped a beat and he quickly walked to the door. Just as he reached the living room, he saw Song Yunshi strangling Yun Shusha. His eyes widened in shock, and the ice cream in his hand fell to the ground. "What's wrong?" Xiao Chen, who was behind him, rushed into the living room. When he saw the heart-wrenching scene in front of him, anger surfaced on his face. In his anger, he crushed the ice cream cup in his hand. "What are you doing? Let go of my mommy." Xiao Chen ran forward and kicked Song Yunshi's knee. This angry kick was equivalent to 80% of an adult's strength. Even Song Yunshi, who was well trained in the military, could not withstand it. She felt a sharp pain in her knee, and she staggered a few steps back before falling to the ground. This lad's strength is D*MN amazing. Chapter 969. Xiao Ichen spread his arms in front of Yun Shusha to protect her. However, when he saw the intruders' faces clearly, he was shocked. It was actually Song Enya and Song Yunshi. Yo-Yo also ran forward in a panic. He walked to Yun Shusha's side and squatted down. He saw that Yun Shusha's hair was messy, her face was red and swollen, and the corner of her mouth was bleeding profusely. He was so shocked that his heart almost stopped at that moment. His heart ached so much that he almost suffocated. Tears gushed out in an instant as he called hoarsely, "Mommy." Xiao Chen turned his head and saw Yun Shusha in a sorry state. His heart ached terribly. He looked at her body and saw that it was covered with grayish-black footprints. It was a tragic sight. Only God knew what had happened not long after they left. Song Enya was slightly surprised to see Xiao Chen. When she saw Yun Tianyu behind him, who looked exactly like him, she was momentarily stunned. How? This child looked exactly like Xiao Chen? Twins? Her first reaction was that Xiao Chen and Yun Tianyu were twins. When she heard how close Yo-Yo and Yun Shusha were, could it be that this child was secretly hidden by Yun Shusha? Her thoughts quickly reorganized. She quickly came up with a conspiracy theory. Could it be that Yun Shusha had given birth to twins as a surrogate for the Mu family back then and hid one of the children for her own selfish desires? She then used the child to rise in status because of her son. Was she trying to use the child to climb up the social ladder? No wonder. No wonder Brother Mu doted on this woman so much. Wasn't that all because of the child? Yun Shusha was really a shrewd woman. She actually used the child to climb up the social ladder. Since ancient times, the status of a woman in a wealthy family rose because of her son. The same goes for the Mu family. Once she figured it out, the disdain and anger on Song Enya's face deepened. She pointed at Yun Shusha and cursed, "B*TCH, you're really shrewd. She's actually hiding the Mu family's heir, trying to use her son to rise in status and marry into a rich family. To think that you have such wild ambitions. Brother Mu must have been fooled by you." "Shut up," Xiao Chen and Yo-Yo said in unison. Song Yunqi stood up. When she looked up, she saw Xiao Chen and Yo-Yo standing in front of Yun Shusha. She was also stunned. He had seen Xiao Chen before, but who was the other child? Brother, did you see that?" Song Enya tugged at her brother's arm and pointed at Yun Shusha. "This woman is a surrogate for Brother Mu, but she's hiding one of the children. She's delusional to think that she can become a phoenix just because of her child. Yun Shusha is really a scheming woman." Yo-Yo calmed himself down and helped Yun Shusha to sit on the sofa. When he turned his head, his face was frosty. His clear eyes, in particular, were emitting a blood-red murderous aura. His gloomy and powerful aura quickly spread to every corner of the living room. Lu Jingtian, who was standing at the side, felt an inexplicable chill and her shoulders shivered. Yo-Yo clenched his fists and stared at them with his beautiful eyes. "Who are you?" Song Enya snorted. "Children shouldn't interfere in adult matters. This is my house. You're not allowed to mess around in my house," Yun Tianyu reminded her coldly in a domineering tone. Chapter 970. At this moment, she actually saw the shadow of Mu Yaja in him, especially that pair of cold and domineering eyes. It was as if they were a carbon copy. Yo-Yo pointed at the door and said in a tone that brooked no argument, "Get out." "Why should I get out?" Song Enya lost her temper and blurted out, "You little rascal, your mouth is quite cheap. Your mother is a cheap wretch, and so are you. Get out. Leave before my patience runs out." Yo-Yo pointed at the door with a murderous glint in his eyes. "Don't appear in front of my mommy again. Seeing your shrewish faces makes me lose my appetite." He had never scolded anyone because his mommy had taught him that boys must be gentlemanly and elegant toward girls. However, seeing his mommy being bullied by these few people, he hated Song Enya to the core. How could he still be gentlemanly toward her? "You! How dare you call me a shrew?" Song Enya furiously stepped forward and raised her hand to slap his face. However, just as she was about to land on the ground, little Chen stopped her with his quick reflexes and held her wrist tightly. Yun Shusha hurriedly shielded Yo-Yo in her arms. When Xiao Chen thought of how Song Enya had called his mommy and brother cheap wretches, an uncontrollable anger rose in his heart. He held Song Enya's wrist tightly and raised his eyes to glare at her. With a crack, Song Enya's wrist was dislocated by him. Song Enya let out a tragic shriek and retreated a few steps. She held her wrist and hid behind Song Yunqi. Lu Jingtian looked at her hand and exclaimed, Enya, your hand is dislocated." Her exclamation attracted Song Yunqi's attention. He lifted Song Enya's hand and saw that it was indeed dislocated. Tears streamed down Song Enya's face as she whimpered in pain. Song Yunqi's eyes were filled with heartache when she heard this. She could not care less as she carried Song Enya in her arms and hurriedly left. When Lu Jingtian saw Song Yunxi carrying Song Enya away, she followed closely behind. Before she left, she turned back to glare at Yun Shusha. Just as she was about to open her mouth to scold her, Yun Tianyu and Xiao Ichen's cold gazes swept over her. Her heart shuddered slightly, and her lips quivered. Thus, she stomped her feet resentfully and left unwillingly. After he left, Yun Shusha finally let down her guard. Her whole body went limp on the ground. She lowered her head and tried her best to hold back the humiliation and grievance. She bit her lips and tears welled up in her eyes. Why did they have to humiliate her like this? Why? Could it be that with power and influence, one could disregard human dignity? Could it be that with power and influence, one could easily trample on other people's dignity? Yun Tianyu supported her by the shoulders. Seeing her in such a sorry state, his heart ached terribly. It was as if a small knife had sliced open a bloody wound on his chest. Even though he was not hurt physically, his heart still ached terribly. "Mommy, does it hurt?" Xiao Ichen hugged her shoulders as well. His heart ached so much that his eyes were wet. He pursed his lips tightly and hugged Yun Shusha's shoulders tighter. Yo-Yo hurriedly rummaged through the drawers and drawers to find the first aid kit. He then took out some cotton and carefully wiped her wound. Yun Shusha bit her lip and wanted to do it herself. Yun Tianyu dodged her outstretched hand, though. "Mommy, don't move. Be good and sit there." Chapter 971. Her body was riddled with scratches of various sizes, all of which were caused by her niece's and Lu Jingtian's nails. There were some places that didn't break, but there were some places where the force was too great. The skin was broken, and traces of blood flowed out. There was an especially deep cut on her elbow. Yun Tianyu dipped a cotton ball in some ointment and applied it carefully, but his tears flowed uncontrollably and landed on her arm. His heart ached so much. Why did they do this to Mommy? His heart ached so much that he felt like suffocating. He would rather bear the pain from Yun Shusha's injuries on himself. Xiao Ichen carefully tidied up her messy hair. He loosened her hair tie and combed it with a comb, causing a clump of hair to fall off. Xiao Ichen received quite a shock. His eyes turned red. He even lost so much hair. Just how intense was the battle he had just experienced? This was too much. How could they bully Mommy? Little Ichen gritted his teeth. His face was flushed red with anger, and he had nowhere to vent his pent-up anger. Yo-Yo carefully applied ointment on her wounds and then held Yun Shusha's face in his hands. His heart ached when he saw the bloody cut on the corner of her lips. "Yo-Yo, give Mommy a kiss." "Mommy doesn't feel pain." Yo-Yo pecked the corner of her lips a few times. His warm little mouth touched her wound as if it could alleviate her pain. Yun Shusha hugged the two little lads in her arms. She was so upset that she held back her grievances. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she stubbornly refused to let them fall. "Mommy, Yo-Yo is here. Yo-Yo will protect you and won't let the bad guys bully you." Yo-Yo choked with grief. It's Yo-Yo's fault. Yo-Yo shouldn't have left Mommy's side. Mommy is hurt. Yo-Yo is so heartbroken. Yo-Yo. Yun Shusha's voice was hoarse and broken. Yo-Yo hugged her even tighter. "Mommy, if you're sad, cry it out. Don't be afraid, Yo-Yo is here. Mommy, cry if you're sad. Xiao Ichen will be with you too." Xiao Ichen hugged her waist, trying to warm her cold heart with the warmth of his body. Yun Shusha bit down hard on her lips, refusing to show her weak side in front of the two little lad. Yo-Yo hugged Yun Shusha tightly, but her eyes were frozen. How dare he bully his mommy? Damn it. He had committed a heinous crime. On the other side, Song Enya was sent to the hospital by Song Yunxi. When she returned home, she threw herself into Jiang Qimeng's arms with an aggrieved look and bawled her eyes out. In the evening, Jiang Qimeng made a call and reported Yun Shusha's crime to Mu Yaja. By the time Mu Yaja received the call, he was already on his way home. Jiang Qimeng, who was on the other end of the line, did not give him any face as she loudly reprimanded him. "Yaja, I heard from Enya that you have a mistress named Yun Shusha, right? That woman is really arrogant. Ever since Enya was young, I couldn't bear to let her get hurt, but look at what happened in the end. That Yoon Shusha is really capable. She actually dislocated Enya's arm. Tell me, is this appropriate? What do you mean? I don't understand. Mu Yaja was also annoyed by her random questioning. You're asking me what I mean? Why don't you go back and ask that *tch yourself? Jiang Chimeng continued to denounce him. Chapter 972. Just as he was feeling vexed, Jiang Chimeng continued her tirade. Enya has always been the apple of the family's eye. She may be a little spoiled, but she's not a bad person by nature. How can a young girl like Yoon Shusha be so vicious as to break Enya's wrist? We're living in a civilized society now. How can there be such an unreasonable person? How can this be? Don't blame Sister Meng for not giving you face. No matter what, I must make that woman give the songs an explanation. I'll make her come to our house and apologize. Fortunately, it's only a dislocated wrist this time. If it's a broken bone, I'll definitely sue her and send her to jail. After that, the call was hung up. Mu Yaja's eyes were filled with anger as he tossed his phone aside. Why did such a thing happen when he wasn't around for a day? Enya's wrist was broken. Yoon Shusha broke it. What exactly happened? Mu Yaja was utterly vexed. Hence, when he reached home, he pushed open the door and walked in coldly. The living room was dark and empty. He then walked to the bedroom and saw Yoon Shusha lying on the bed. The lights were off in the room, and it was cold and quiet. Her body was curled up on the bed. He did not know if she was asleep or just lying there. However, despite such a big thing happening, she acted as if nothing had happened. He should at least ask about the whole thing. Why did she hurt Song Enya? Hence, he spoke. Yoon Shusha. Yoon Shusha woke up abruptly and sat up on the bed. When she saw that he had returned, a smile appeared on her face. However, when she saw the cold and sullen look on his face, the smile on her face faded bit by bit. What exactly happened between you and Enya? I heard that you broke her wrist. Mu Yaja was the first to ask, but he asked such a question. Hence, Yoon Shusha's expression turned colder. He called her by her full name in a cold tone, but when he called Song Enya, he sounded so affectionate. What? What does this mean? What did that mean? Could it be that Song Enya had complained to him? Is he here to denounce me? She thought that no matter what happened, he would trust her unconditionally like she did. No matter what others said to him, he would calmly ask her what had happened. In the end, he was so angry the moment he came back, as if she was the heinous sinner. Was it her fault? Song Enya was the one who barged into her house and beat her up, so why was she the one being questioned? Was he not going to ask the Songs about what his niece had done to her? Yoon Shusha pursed her lips tightly and remained silent, stubbornly keeping her mouth shut. Her cold demeanor made it seem like she was angry with him. When Mu Yaja saw her indifferent expression, he became even angrier. What? Being stubborn even after doing something wrong? Let me ask you, why did you break her arm? What the hell happened? You're really protective of her. Yoon Shusha forced a smile and sighed. Even though her eyes were smiling, her heart was filled with an indescribable bitterness. Did your heart ache when you heard that she was hurt? That's why you came back so aggressively to denounce me, isn't it? She asked in a cryptic voice. All of a sudden, she was a little envious of Song Enya. Look, she was the one who was unreasonable first. She did something wrong and shed a few tears, and a group of people coaxed her. Chapter 973. It was so unfair. She sighed desolately in her heart. Mu Yaja heard her sarcastic tone and frowned slightly. However, he heard her ask back with a smile, so? Do you want me to go over and kowtow to apologize? I hurt her. Her Song family has power and influence. Do you want me to go to jail? People with a bit of power are really different. They can cover the sky with one hand. I'm really scared. How can a commoner like me fight with the dignified daughter of the Song family? He looked unhappy. He went forward and grabbed her chin. His cold eyes stared at her face. I'm asking you a question. Do you have to be so mean? Armed with a baton? Yoon Shusha had tears in her eyes, but she laughed. She held back her tears and pretended to be calm as she asked, then what do you want me to do? I did break her hand, I did hit her, and I even slapped her. I even called her a b***tch and shameless. Mu Yaja was so angry that he was at a loss for words. He couldn't help but use more strength in his hands. I'm just asking you what happened. Do you have to use such a tone? Yun Shusha only felt that her chin was about to be dislocated by him. She felt even more wronged for a moment. Before she finished speaking, her tears fell and rolled down. They dripped on the back of his hand. It was frighteningly hot. A woman's mind was so delicate and sensitive. After such a thing happened, she was looking forward to him returning home to give her a warm hug and listen to her grievances. He didn't ask for justice for her. However, when he came back, he was so aggressive and said that he wanted to listen to her explanation. Ha ha! What was there to explain? Why did she have so many things to explain? Yun Shusha bit her lips. Then, as if she had lost all her strength, her voice was hoarse and broken. Mu Yaja, what do you want me to do? Don't cry. He was so afraid that she would cry. Once she cried, he would be completely helpless. He told her not to cry, but her tears fell even more violently. Drop by drop, they rolled down like broken pearls. Liking you is such a tiring thing. You're so outstanding and unattainable. As for me, I'm so lowly, as low as dust. Mu Yaja, liking you is really tiring. She bit her red lips and turned her face away. She didn't want this man to see her sorry state. Mu Yaja reached out and wanted to hug her. But Yun Shusha pushed him. She rolled and wrapped herself in the blanket, unwilling to be touched by him. She was clearly trying to avoid him. But would he allow her to escape? He walked over, lifted the blanket, and pulled her into his arms. Yun Shusha, on the other hand, struggled like a madwoman and bellowed, "Don't touch me. Get away. Stop fooling around. Be good and listen to me." He held her tightly in his arms, not allowing her to struggle. He was so strong and domineering that he didn't give her any room to resist. When she calmed down, he hugged her even tighter and said in a deep voice, "Just now, I wasn't rational enough. Maybe things aren't what I thought. I came back not to convict you, but to listen to your explanation. So, you don't have to be so sarcastic with your words." Yun Shusha remained silent, but the anxiety in her eyes eased a little. Chapter 974. If he trusted her more, he would not be like this. Would he believe everything that Song Enya said unconditionally? What about her, then? Would he listen to her explanation? Still, why did trust have to be built on an explanation? Mu Yaja did not know what was on her mind. Seeing her silence, he leaned close to her ear and said in a deep voice, "I don't care what conflict you have with Enya, but she's the mayor's daughter. She grew up being pampered like a spoiled princess, so it's inevitable that she's a little arrogant and willful, but she's not a bad person by nature. You're older than her, so you should give in to her a little. No matter who's right or wrong between the two of you, you should at least apologize for injuring her hand." Yun Shusha's heart turned cold all of a sudden. She wiped away her tears forcefully. The grievances in her heart were like a turbulent wave that came crashing over like a mountain, completely engulfing her. "She deserves it for having her hand broken," she said calmly, but her voice was cold. Mu Yaja's eyes turned cold. "What?" I said. She suddenly raised her head and met his cold gaze. She said word by word, "She deserves it for having her hand broken." "Shut up," he scolded her. He could not hide the anger on his face. His eyes were so cold that they seemed to freeze her to the bone. "I'll give you 3 seconds to take back your words." "Take back my words. Take back my words." Yun Shusha looked at him in disbelief. He actually shouted at her for Song Enya's sake. The expression on his face was so fierce, and his eyes were like cold rays. It was not that Yun Shusha was pretentious, but at this moment, she was a little doubtful. What kind of place did Song Enya occupy in his heart? Was it really just a cousin's relationship with his cousin? So much so that he came home in a rage without a word. It was obvious that he was here to denounce her. She said that she deserved it, but he actually asked her to take it back with such a bad attitude. Did he not think about it carefully? Was she such an unreasonable person? Yun Shusha seemed to be against him. She refused to say anything. Her eyes were wide open, and tears were rolling in her eyes. However, she stubbornly refused to let them fall. Was this stupid woman trying to fight him head-on? Yoon Shusha, what's with your attitude? She was stunned for a moment and almost lost her mind under that cold gaze. However, when she came back to her senses, she stubbornly raised her little face and said, "Why should I take back my word?" The man frowned. She felt wronged and angry. Her little hands gripped the bedsheets tightly, unwilling to give in. She deserved it. "I take back my words." He interrupted her again. His words were cold and emotionless, so cold that it made people feel unfamiliar. Yoon Shusha's face was red with anger, and the bedsheets were crumpled in her hands. "Mu Yaja, what right do you have to speak to me in such a tone? It's clearly not my fault. It's obviously." The long fingers pinching her chin exerted some force, and she gasped in pain. In the silent confrontation between the two, the coldness in the man's eyes became more and more dangerous. "I won't repeat myself a third time." His voice became sterner, and his eyes became more sinister. "Yoon Shusha, I don't have patience." Yoon Shusha pursed her lips. She could no longer hold back her tears, and they rolled down. The man's eyes narrowed slightly. "I thought you were a sensible woman, but I didn't expect you to be so unreasonable." Chapter 975. Yoon Shusha suddenly laughed miserably and curled her lips. "I'm vicious, ignorant, and unreasonable. I'm such a woman. Have you just realized it now?" Mu Yaja's gaze turned even colder. She suddenly broke free from his grip and said uncontrollably, "Since you feel sorry for her, I'll return her hand that I hurt, okay? I'll return her injury to her, okay?" However, she immediately walked to the wall, clenched her fist tightly, and smashed it hard on the wall. Bang! A loud sound was heard. It was heavy and powerful. Mu Yaja was startled. He got up abruptly, walked over to her side, and grabbed her hand abruptly. Looking down, he saw that her knuckles were red and swollen. "Yoon Shusha, what are you doing?" Mu Yaja was furious. This woman would rather hurt herself than give in to him. How could she be so stubborn? "Do you have to be so stubborn?" Mu Yaja's heart ached and he was angry. However, when he lowered his head to look at her, he happened to see some strange marks on her shoulder. He stopped talking and pulled open her clothes. His fingers brushed aside her clothes, only to see that there were some bloody marks that seemed to have been made by fingernails. They weren't broken, but they left a deep bloody mark. "What's going on?" he asked. Yoon Shusha raised her hand and swatted his hand away. She slowly hugged her shoulder and squatted down. She was like a person drifting on the sea, welcoming the waves that kept crashing over, but there was no shore in sight. She felt helpless and hopeless. He leaned over and scooped her into his arms. Ignoring her struggles, he started to check on her. It wasn't just her shoulder. Her arms, elbows, knees, calves, waist. Every part of her skin that was exposed to the air had different degrees of scratches. Some of them were light and didn't break the skin. Some of them were heavy and broke the skin and had been applied with medicine. However, he could vaguely imagine how pathetic she was before. "Who did this?" he asked angrily in a deep voice. Why were there so many injuries on her body? This clearly looked like it was caught by someone. When he thought of catching, he thought of women fighting. When men fought, it was mostly a confrontation of strength, but when women fought, it seemed a little crazy. If they didn't pull her hair, they would slap her face. If that wasn't enough, they would scratch her. She had seen how ruthless a woman could be when she threw a tantrum. The injuries on his body were obviously caused by a woman. Yoon Shusha lowered her head and ignored him. She snorted a few times but did not make a sound. The man checked her from head to toe again. When she didn't speak, he lifted her chin and searched her face with his eyes. He quickly caught a glimpse of the unusual redness on her cheeks. On the little face buried in her hair, there were faint fingerprints. She had kept her head down the entire time, and if one did not look carefully, they would not have noticed it at all. The coldness in his eyes intensified, but his gaze fell on the corner of her lips, where he saw a deep cut. It was a shocking sight. In his eyes, women were fragile, like delicate flowers. If he wasn't careful, he would hurt her. After all, there was a great disparity in strength between men and women. Therefore, he had always been careful with her, afraid that he would hurt her even a little. However, now, the woman he had always carefully protected was actually hurt by someone else. The coldness in his heart rose to the extreme and kept surging. Chapter 976. Connecting the dots to what had happened earlier, he could guess who had caused Yun Shusha's injuries. Still, why didn't she say anything? Mu Yaja was a little annoyed. Why didn't she tell him that she was injured? Is it Enya's doing? Her. He grabbed her chin, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. Answer me. She pushed him away stubbornly, her tone cold and distant. What has it got to do with you? What do you mean it has nothing to do with me? He became even more furious and grabbed her little hand that was causing trouble. With a tug, her entire body fell into his embrace. You're not allowed to say that. Yun Shusha sucked in a deep breath of cold air. She raised her head and glared at him with her reddened eyes. Fine. Didn't you want to ask? Then, I'll tell you. Who else could it be other than Song Enya? She barged into our house for no reason with Lu Jingtian and a stranger. Without a word, she came up and slapped me. She even said something like, "Is the Song family someone I can afford to offend?" Even if she chopped off one of my hands, no one can do anything to her. On what basis? On what basis can she be so arrogant and trample on other people's dignity? Isn't it because her family is powerful and influential? She's a bully. Not only that, she even wanted me to kowtow and apologize to her. What a good kowtow and apologize. She's not my parents, so on what basis should I kneel to her? That's why we fought. I've told you everything. Are you satisfied now? Are you satisfied now? The last sentence was shouted out in a hoarse voice. His voice was hoarse, as if he was venting all of his strength. Mu Yaja was stunned. After shouting everything, Yun Shusha panted for a moment to calm herself down. Pursing her lips, she said in a hoarse and trembling voice, "What can I do? Do I really have to kowtow to her? How lowly must I be to allow her to trample on my dignity?" The feeling of having one's dignity trampled on was worse than death. As she spoke, she curled herself into a ball and buried her face in his chest. She didn't want this man to see her at her most embarrassing moment. How nice would it be if he could find a quiet place to heal his wounds? The man hugged her. Through the thin material of her clothes, he could feel her hot breath, as well as the hot and wet traces. Don't cry. It was my fault just now. He bowed his head to her and admitted his fault. There was indeed a problem with his attitude just now. Thus, he swallowed his pride and whispered an apology into her ear. Sorry. These 3 words were even more important than 1,000 pieces of gold. He was such a proud person. He was the heir of the Mu family and the future head of the family. He had always been the pride of the heavens. He had never lowered his head to anyone, nor had he ever apologized to anyone. However, this was the only time he had personally said these 3 words. It was also the only time that she had put down all her pride in front of someone. I didn't know the truth and got angry at you. It's my fault. Don't cry, or else, my heart will ache. As she cried, his heart ached as well. He had never been patient with women, especially when it came to women's tears. However, as long as it was her tears, he couldn't do anything about it. Whenever she cried, his heart would soften and he would be utterly defeated. Yun Shusha's gaze shifted slightly. She felt that the 3 words sorry coming from this man's mouth was so unreal. Chapter 977. The anger and grievance that filled his heart instantly dissipated by more than half in the face of these 3 words that were filled with guilt and tenderness. Yun Shusha was a little angry with herself. Why was she so disappointing? She had originally planned to never forgive this man in this lifetime. However, when she heard those words, the hardest part of her heart instantly softened. Mu Yaja carried her to sit on the bed. He held her in his arms and was about to lift her clothes. She quickly stopped him. What are you doing? Be good, don't move. Let me see. Don't look. She rejected him righteously. However, would he really listen to her even if she rejected him? He did not allow her to say anything and lifted her skirt high up. However, the scene that entered his eyes made his eyes hurt. It turned out that the scratches were considered small. All he saw were bruises of various sizes on her fair and clean body. With one look, he knew that someone had ruthlessly pinched her. This woman's body was extremely sensitive. Usually, it would show in bed. However, if he did not pay attention to the strength of his hands, he would leave marks. Therefore, he had always been very careful when dealing with her. He loved her fair and jade-like skin, but now, it was unbelievably damaged. Mu Yaja's eyes became increasingly cold. He ran his fingers over the bruises, and she immediately gasped softly. It hurts. Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen returned home after buying the medicine. They had just opened the bedroom door when they saw this scene. Yo-Yo's face turned red. She thought that her daddy and mommy were doing something embarrassing. However, when she took a closer look, it turned out that Mu Yaja was checking her injuries. "Daddy," he called out. Then, he walked over with his head lowered and handed him the medicine to reduce bruises and swelling. "Mommy, does the wound still hurt that much?" He turned his face and faced the wall. He did not look at her, but he asked with concern. Yun Shusha could not help but feel cold. At such a young age, he already knew the difference between men and women. "It doesn't hurt anymore," Yun Shusha said. Yo-Yo pursed her lips. He had no idea what had happened, and his mother did not mention a word about it, either. If he were to find out the reason for Song Enya's visit, he would probably ignore him entirely. "Did you just go to buy medicine?" Mu Yaja asked. Yo-Yo and Xiao Ichen nodded. "Have you eaten?" "No. I'll go get some food right away." "Daddy, do you want to eat?" "No need. I've eaten." Yo-Yo nodded and glanced at Yun Shusha. Seeing that she had calmed down a little, she left the room with peace of mind. Mu Yaja picked up the ointment and applied it on his palm. He then carefully rubbed the wound, slowly and gently. Yun Shusha frowned in pain. "It hurts, bear with it. You'll recover faster after I apply the ointment." As Mu Yaja spoke, his movements became gentler as he applied the ointment and gently rubbed it. It was rare to see such a patient side of him. Yun Shusha's heart warmed slightly, but when she thought of the aggressive side of him when he came back, she could not help but feel angry again. She muttered, "Don't think that I'll forgive you just because of this." Mu Yaja raised a brow and glanced at her. He then increased the strength of his hand. Yun Shusha hissed in pain and then glared at him angrily. "Are you doing this on purpose? Be good." This woman was actually pushing her luck when he gave in a little. Chapter 978. After a moment of silence, she asked tentatively, "Do you know that Song Enya likes you?" "Huh." Mu Yaja did not react at first. He raised a brow at first, but when he realized what she was asking, he fell silent. "Do you know?" She nudged him again when he did not reply. Only then did he reply, "I know." "You know?" Yun Shusha was slightly surprised. "It's not that kind of like. It's, I know what you're referring to." Mu Yaja frowned. Did this stupid woman think that he was as stupid as she was? Of course, he knew what Song Enya was thinking about him. Yun Shusha, on the other hand, was slightly stunned. Since he knew, why did he still have such a reaction? She snorted unhappily. "There are so many women who like you." The man glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. It seemed that there were many men who were pestering her. However, when he caught a glimpse of the displeasure on her face, he suddenly smiled. "Why? Are you jealous?" Yun Shusha bit her lip and did not answer. He could not help but increase the strength of his hand, deliberately hurting her and not allowing her to escape. "Answer me." Yun Shusha flew into a rage out of humiliation. "Don't go overboard." She raised her head, only to see the man's handsome face quickly pressing down on hers. His thin lips covered hers and kissed away her sweet breath. He gently dotted her lips. Unlike the past, where he took her by force, he kissed her lips gently. He kissed her lips, then the corner of her lips where she was cut. Then, he kissed her forehead, the tip of her nose, her cheeks, and finally landed on her lips. He went deeper and deeper. She shut her mouth tightly, not allowing him to invade her lips. However, he increased the strength of his hand. She opened her lips slightly in pain and sucked in a breath of cold air. He took advantage of the situation and entered, gently sweeping her. Somehow, he wanted her. However, now was not the time. What she needed more now was rest. With this thought in mind, he fiercely suppressed the desire bursting out of his body. He lowered his eyes and extinguished the flame in his eyes. After applying the ointment